Hello guys and welcome back to my channel, and in this video we will start with the implementation of our e-commerce application, and that is cloning of Amazon website. And over here in this video we will start with the implementation from the scratch, and thereafter we will start with the implementation of each and every component that you need to develop for cloning the Amazon application, starting with the creation of the React components with routers and many additional features of the React. So at the end of this video, we will be done with the entire UI cloning of our Amazon app. So before we just start with the development process from the scratch, let me just show you how the final product will look like after the end of this video. So here you can see this is our final product of the Amazon clone, where we have different categories of product listed over here, and we have a huge categories of item listed at the top. So let's start with a bit of shopping from our website, and let's see how this thing is completely implemented. So over here you can see if I just click on the mobile app, it will list down all the mobiles that are available in our Amazon website. And over here you can see it shows the different varieties of iPhone present in our website. So right now it is fed with all the demo data over here, which we will be further updating as we keep on moving forward with the video. So here if you want to buy an iPhone 12 over here, so just click on the iPhone 12 and it will list down all the details of the product relevant for this iPhone 12. So if you just right now want to buy this product, you just need to click on add to cart, and here you can see the iPhone got added into our cart. Similarly, let's bought another version of iPhone, that is iPhone 11. So let's buy it from here. So let's also add it to cart, and here you can see two of the iPhone got listed over here in our cart. So now if you want to buy this product, you just have to click on buy now, and you will land into our checkout page, and it will list down both the mobile which are added into your cart, and this is the final payment that you have to make to buy both this item. And if you just finally click on proceed to buy, it will land to the payment gateway method. So this is how our Amazon will look like at the end of this tutorial. So I hope you are already pretty much excited to see that how beautifully we have developed this amazing website clone over here. So without wasting much time, let's start with this video of UI cloning of our Amazon application using the React.js. But before that, if you are new to my channel, do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update from my side and you are always ready for your next interview. So without wasting much time, let's start with cloning our Amazon website from the scratch. And for that, we will be creating an empty React project. So for that, let me create a folder and let's name this file as Amazon Clone. Great. Over here from the Visual Studio, I will be opening the folder that I have just now created. So let's go to the download and click on Amazon Clone. Now let's go to the terminal on the Visual Studio, and over here you can see I am within the folder called as Amazon Clone. Let's now create an empty React project, and the syntax for creating an empty React project is npx create react app, after that the name of the project. So it's Amazon Clone. So let's click on enter and let's start creating the app. So this will take a couple of minutes to create an empty React project for you. So let's wait for some time and build the project. So over here, before start with the implementation and cloning of this Amazon website, we have to first see and analyze the exact structure by which this website has been implemented. So over here, if you see, this website have a similar structure all across the application. So if you see carefully at the very top, we have a navigation bar where we have a navigation panel which help us to navigate between all the pages of our Amazon app. And over here at the top, we have a title which is nothing but the logo of Amazon, a search bar, and some login and logout buttons. So this is basically our header section of our Amazon app. And over here you can see that there is a huge image which is present, which is actually moving here periodically. So this is basically the way of showing the advertisement on the e-commerce platform. And this section or this feature is known as the carousel. So apart from the carousel at the top, let's see what are the other additional things what we have in our site. So over here, if you just look carefully, there is a similarity on the structure of each and every component. So all this structure are more or less same, which means that all are some cubicle shape, and within this each and every cubicle shape, we are having a 4x4 images over here, which means that on each and every tiles that we have, within that we have to provide 4 images for the advertisement. And if we change the images accordingly, we will also get the same thing over and over again. So over here you can see we can make this as a parent component, and within this parent component we can have a title field, and after this title field we can have 4 images aligned like this. And if we keep on repeating this parent component over and over again, you can see we can easily get all these components that are present over here, and we can make a similar layout, something like this. So before cloning any website from the scratch, you first have to analyze the website, that how they have built, and from the React perspective how we can also implement the same. So this was actually our first observation. So over here we have a header tag, a carousel, and some components which looks almost the same. So now if I go a little downwards, here you can see there is another type of component which is also a type of carousel, because over here also you can see a left hand navigation bar and a right hand navigation bar, which will help you to navigate between the products which are available on the Amazon website. So similar thing we also have to make. So there are 2 parent components. Number 1 is a small cubicle structure like this, and number 2 a horizontal component like this. So these are the primary 2 components which we have on this Amazon website. So if you go further down, you can see we are again having the same long horizontal component which is same like the previous one, and at the down we also have the same component that we have encountered at the top. So here you can see the entire website is based on these 2 to 3 type of component which they are using across the application. So we will be implementing the same thing, and over the time we will see that how much reusable component we can make, so that with the less amount of coding we can implement this amazing Amazon website from the scratch. So now since you have understood the each and every component of our home page, let's start with building this home page over here. And once we are done with implementing this amazing home page, then we will be moving to our next component, and that is the order list, which is actually our checkout page of the order. And then we will be moving to the login screen for this Amazon app. And even after that, if we have some time, then we will be moving to the wish list, which will help you to add some of the items which we will be likely to buy in the future. So without wasting much time, let's first start building this home page from the scratch. And for that we will be again going to our Visual Studio Code, and we will start from the scratch. And one more thing, while we are building this application, or when you are coding along with me, you will require to have all the images and the icon of the products that Amazon is using over here. And for that, to make your life simple, I will be also providing an image folder in the description below. Feel free to use that image folder, because it will help you to get all the images that I will be using to make the Amazon clone from the scratch. So without wasting much time, let's start with building the first home page from the scratch. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code. So as we have seen, our empty React project have been downloaded successfully. Let me now go into the project and let's build the application. So we'll do cd Amazon clone, which is the name of the folder, and we will be doing npm start. So this will build the project and it will run an empty React application for you guys. And great, you can see we have an empty React application which is having a default loader. So let's first remove some unnecessary things from here and let's start building the application from the scratch. So we will go to our Visual Studio Code, and over here we will expand our project. So if you are already familiar with the React project, you can see that we have 3 major folders. One is the node module, which consists of all the libraries and the JS file for building this application. One is the public file, and another is the source file. And this source file is the main folder which we need for building this application. So let's first clean few of the attributes and let's make a clean project so that we can start from the scratch. So here we will first go to the app.js and we will delete all the things from here. So now we have a clean app. Let's save it, and also let's get rid of this logo, which is actually the loader which you have seen on the empty React app. So let's get rid of this one. Let's save it, and let's also go to the CSS file, that is the app.css, and let's get rid of all the unnecessary CSS attribute over here. So let's delete it and let's click on save. So right now we have an app.css which is empty without anything, and we also have a app.css which is also blank. So right now you can see it got successfully compiled and it is successfully hosted on the localhost 3000. So let's go to the browser and create. You can see we have a completely blank application from which we will be start our coding. And at the end of this complete video, you will be also having a similar website just the way we have the Amazon website over here. So without wasting much time, let's start with coding each and every attribute iteratively so that it will be easy for you to understand. So I'm pretty much excited to start this project from the scratch, and hopefully you guys are also excited with me to start learning something new. So without wasting much time, let's start coding together, and please follow me so that you do not miss a single opportunity to learn something new. So without wasting much time, let's start with coding. But before that, if you like this video, please do like and share this video. And if you are new to my channel, do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update from my side and you are always ready for your next interview. So without wasting much time, let's start with building this application from the scratch, and let's start with building our navigation bar over here. So for building this application from the scratch, we first need a CSS library for the decoration purpose. And for that, we will be using the React Material UI. So let's go to Google and download this library into our project. So we will go to Google and type React Material UI. So we will go into the Material UI library, and over here we will go within the getting started and we will click on installation. And you can see we have the npm command to install our Material UI library. So let's copy this and let's paste it within our application, which means that within the terminal provided by the Visual Studio. So let's paste it. So over here we are installing the Material UI library in our project, and it will take a couple of minutes. So let's wait for some time. And that's it. You can see we have successfully installed the Material UI library into our project. So let's start building the project, and let's start from the scratch. So we'll again start the project. Let's call it npm start. And great, we have successfully installed the Material UI library into our project, and our project is running successfully. So great, now we can start with the actual implementation. So for cloning the Amazon application, we will first start with the navigation bar at the top. So let's start with creating each and every component one by one, and let's start with the implementation. So to create our first component, what we will be doing, we will go inside our source directory and we will create a simple folder called as component, which will comprises of all the components that we are using or creating within our project. So this is the parent of all the components we have within our project. So let's create a folder called as component. Let's start with the implementation of one component at a time. So over here, let's create a component called as navigation bar. And for creating the component called as navigation bar, what we will be doing to make the structure of this project much more simple and easier to understand, we will be creating each and every folder for all the components. So create a directory called as navbar. And within this navbar directory, we will be creating the component called as navigation bar. So let's call this navigation.js. And creating a component within the Visual Studio is pretty easy if you have some of the extension within the VS Code. So in our first video where we have done with the installation process, over there I have told all the dependencies that you need to have for building this application. So by leveraging that extension, let's build our first component, and for that we will be typing imrc, which is actually a shortcut of importing the component and the React libraries into our JS file. Now let's create the first component, that is the navbar.js. And if you know, we have two ways of creating a component within the React framework. Number one is by using the functional component, and number two is the class component. But over here, for the first time, I will be showing you how to create a class component, and down the line when we will be creating other components, over there I will be telling you how to create a functional component. And over there we will be using React hooks to understand that how the React framework actually works. So let's use all type of React functionality so that it is easy for you to understand the entire flow of how a React framework works. So for the first time, we will be using the class component over here, and also at the end I will be telling you that when to use a class component and when to use a functional component, and what is the actual difference or advantage of using one above the another. So for creating a class component here, the shortcut with the extension is CCC. So we click on enter, and over here you can see that the extension will provide you a damn beautiful template for creating a class component. So this extension is pretty much useful because over here you have to create multiple number of components across the application. So let's start with giving a name to this class component. So I will be giving as navbar. So let's save it, and we will be importing our first component, that is the navbar. And you can see as soon as I have imported the component, the VS Code has automatically imported the navbar from our component directory. So that's great. Let's save it and let's see whether everything is working or not. So for understanding that easily, what we will be doing, we will be giving a small HTML code as navbar. So we are done with creating our navigation bar. Let's go to our application and let's see whether it is coming or not. So great, you can see we have successfully imported our navigation bar at the top. Let's start building this navigation bar and also the entire home page one at a time. So another important thing that I will be doing also is I will be creating a home UI over here. So if you carefully notice, this entire page have two main components. One is the navigation bar at the top and one is the home page at the bottom. So let's start with creating the home page at the bottom. So we will create another component called as main home page, and for that on the component folder we will be creating another directory called as the home page, and within this home page we will be creating the main component, that is the main page for our Amazon dashboard. So let's create a component called as main page, and within this component also we will be doing the same thing. We will be first importing the library, that is IMRC, and we will be creating a class component called as the main page. And within this return block, which is the main body of the component, I will be creating a div tag with a small HTML tag like the main page. So over here we have created two components. Number one is the navigation bar at the top and the home page at the bottom. So let's also import this main page into our main application file, and that is the app.css. So we will be also importing our component, that is the main page. So great, here you can see we have got two components. One is the navigation bar and the main page, and in the UI if you see, we already got the navigation and the main page as two components within this home UI. So let's now start with the implementation of the navigation bar. So for implementing the navigation bar over here, what we have to do, we have to first create a CSS file for this corresponding navigation bar. So basically what we have to do, for each and every component we should have a specific CSS file associated for that component. So it is basically a good practice to create a separate CSS file for each and every component. Otherwise, if you create all the CSS in a single component or a single page like the main.css, then it will be very difficult to maintain and very difficult to change any attribute based on a particular component. So it's actually a good practice to create separate CSS file for separate module, because this is the beauty of the React component. So what we will be doing for the navigation bar, I will be creating a CSS file associated for the navbar. So I will be creating navbar.css. And since this CSS file is only linked to the navigation bar, what we have to do, we have to also import this CSS file within this navigation bar component. Otherwise, the navigation bar obviously can't understand that this CSS file is associated for myself. And for that, what we have to do, we have to import the CSS file at the top. So let's import it over here. So we are done with importing a specific CSS file for our navbar. So let's start building the navigation bar at the top. To create this navigation bar, first we have to define a height and width of this navigation bar. So for that, I obviously need a CSS class associated with this parent component. And for that, I will be attaching a class name over here. So we'll go with the class name and let's name the CSS class name as navbar. So let's name it as navbar as our parent component. So for simplicity and for making the code modular and easy to understand what we will be doing, we will be following a general convention. So what is that? Within this entire module, whatever the CSS class name we will be associating, we will start with navbar underscore. And after that, the name of the module which we are creating. So over here, since this is a parent component, I am giving it as a navbar underscore component. So let's import this navbar component class within our CSS file. So this is a simple similar way by which we include a CSS file within our HTML block. So there is nothing special with the React component. So what we will be doing, we will first select a width, that is VW, which means the 100% of the width of the total page, and then we will be giving the height of this component. So let's give a height component. So let's first understand that what is the height provided. So we'll go to the inspect element, and if I try to inspect the navigation bar, you can see the height and width of this component. So in this way, we will be also giving the same pixel height. Now let's get the color code, and for that also we will be using an extension, a Chrome extension that is called as color picker. So this will actually help us to debug all the color code used within the application. So over here, if you can see, if I hover over this color, you can see this is the color code that is used. So let's copy this color code and let's give the background color as this one. So let's save it and let's go to our browser to see whether we got the similar navigation bar or not. And great, you can see over here we got a similar navigation bar at the top. Let's start implementing this attribute one at a time. So the first thing that we will be doing is we will be importing the logo of the Amazon, and for that I have already provided you with all the images that you need for building this amazing app. And to get the image directory, you can just simply go to the description box, and over there you can see the URL of the image folder, which comprises of all the images and the photos that we need for building this application. So let's leverage that image folder and let's find out the image for the logo over there. So if you go to the URL that I have provided in the description, you can also find out a similar directory, something like this, which is called as Amazon image, which have all the images we are using over here. So in our earlier project where we have done the clone of Facebook and Instagram, over there if you have gone through those tutorials, which I will be giving the link at the top, over there you will see that what I have done is I have imported those image files within our project, and to use those images I was just importing that from the local directory and was using those images. But rather in this project here we will do something new, because in real life, to optimize our application and to make our project much more simple, we actually perform something different. So let's see what different thing we will be doing right now for using this image file. So what we actually do in real world for building a huge scale application is, instead of putting all the images within our local folder, we take the help of the CDN, which means the Content Delivery Network. So let's first understand that what is actually a CDN. So if you want to know more about the CDN, that how it works and what is the actual need of a CDN into our distributed architecture, you have to go to this Cloudflare website and go through this video that is listed over here, which will give you a detailed insight of what is a CDN and how it is used to optimize the loading time of this website. So hopefully right now you are clear that why we use a CDN rather than hosting the images into our directory structure. So let's first export all these images into a CDN library and let's see how we do it in the real world. And for that we will be exporting all these images that we will be using over here to a free CDN hosting agent. So CDN is basically a paid service, but there are a lot of CDNs available which we can use for free for our project purpose. So let's use one of those CDNs and let's host this and let's see how we can actually implement and optimize our project over here. So we'll go to Google and we will type CDN free. So let's use the first CDN hosting agent. So let's use this image kit and let's create a free account. So I will be creating a free account using the Google sign up. So once you log in into your account, it will ask for a region where you want to host your CDN. So since we are in India, we will be selecting Mumbai over here, and let's give a custom URL for hosting our images. So let's give it as Amazon 1234. So great, we got the account created. Now let's go to the start and click on upload your first image. So what we will be doing over here, you can see we have a sample images already uploaded. So to simply upload our files, that is the folder that I have given you on the description below, what you have to do, you have to click on new file upload. Here you have to just drop the entire folder within this uploader file. So you can see all the images that we have given in the directory got successfully uploaded into our CDN. So here you can see this is getting uploaded one at a time. So let's wait for a couple of minutes for this thing to get uploaded. So all the files got successfully uploaded. Let's click on done. And let's first understand that how these things work. So here you can see for each and every images we have a URL provided. So if you want to get this image from our CDN library, what you have to do, you just have to click originals over here. You can see that the link got copied, and if you just go to another terminal and paste the URL of this corresponding image, you can see this image is available with that corresponding URL. So with the help of this CDN library, we will be actually implementing the entire Amazon application so that the loading time of our application increases significantly. So let's start with building, and let's start with leveraging this CDN library for importing each and every images. So the first image that we will be using is this image, which consists of all the images and the logos that we need. So since this is a PNG file, you cannot see the images over here. So let me open it in my local and let me show you how this thing is actually working. So if you look carefully here, this file is actually called as a sprite image, which means that all the images or the tooltip that we are using for a particular application, we keep everything together on a single file to optimize the size of the image. And over there, based on the position of each and every images, we import that images into the CSS file. So we'll also see how to import a particular images from a particular location and how we can leverage this sprite file into our project. So first thing first, we have to import this sprite file into our project. So what we will be doing, we will first get the URL of this sprite file. So let's copy it and let's use this image. So first thing what we have to do is we have to go to our component, that is the navigation bar.js, and within this navigation bar div, which is the parent div, we have to first create a div for adding the logo in the header. So let's start with creating a div. So let's give a class name to this image file and let's import this class name into our CSS file. So since we are creating the logo, we first need to import the sprite file which we have posted into our CDN. So the way we handle the images within the sprite is somewhat different from the conventional way of the image file import. So let's see how we will be doing and how we will be setting the height and width of this image file. So let's learn how to do it using the sprite file. So what we will do, we will first import the image, that is the background image, and we will set the URL which we got from the CDN library. Now the thing is, if you go into the sprite file, you can see we are right now targeting this image, which is placed somewhere in the middle of the image. So we actually have to get the exact coordinate of this image so that we can target this particular Amazon logo. So the way we can get the starting coordinate for a particular logo within an image is by measuring the x-axis distance and the y-axis distance from the starting point of the image. So over here, this will be the distance from the x-axis and this will be the distance from the y-axis. So by seeing only the sprite, it is very difficult to get the starting position of a particular logo. And for that, we use an external tool, and that is a sprite locator. So what we'll do, we will go to Google and we'll try the sprite image locator. So over here, we will be using the sprite cow. So let's open it and let's upload the image that we have just given in our image file. So great, you can see our image got uploaded. Let's change the background color to something different so that we can understand the difference between the color contrast. Now the point is we need to get the image that is this one, since we are looking for the logo. So what we will be doing, we will be clicking on this select sprite, and over here we will draw an outer image for this particular logo. So if I just select this image, you can see that this tool will give you the exact coordinate, that is the height and width of this image from this starting position, that is 0, 0. And with the help of this tool, we can not only get the image location of each and every images, but also we can optimize the file structure and the file size so that the loading time of our application decreases significantly. So let's see how we will be implementing this into our application. So what we will be doing, so since we already have the image location, so we'll just copy this code from here and we will place in our navbar.logo. So let's replace the image URL and let's click on save. So let's go to our browser and let's see whether it is working or not. And great, you can see with the help of this sprite and this sprite locator, we have successfully imported the Amazon logo. And in this way, you can see we will be importing all the images available over here, and we will make our application as small as possible so that the loading time of the images decrease significantly. So now since you have understood that how the basic thing will be working over here, that how we will be importing the image and how we will be significantly optimizing the speed and the performance of the application, let's now start with building each and every component, and let's start with the basic CSS implementation so that our navigation bar also looks something like this. So let's go with the implementation one by one. So the first thing that we have already implemented is the logo, that is Amazon logo. Let's now create one more div which will exactly show geological location at which the browser is located. But as of now, just to make the thing simplify, we will just create a div and we will give the name of a place. So let's create a div. Let's give it Bangalore. So let's assume that we are in Bangalore location right now. So let's give a class name and let's also include it within our CSS file. Let's save it and let's go into our browser. So here you can see this is where the Bangalore location is coming. So obviously it is not looking the way we have expected. So let's decorate it with the CSS so that it looks more or less similar like this. So here we will be doing a browser CSS so that it takes less time for us to run our code. So what we will do, we will first set the color of this text as white and we will increase the boldness of this text to some extent. So right now it's looking great. Now what we have to do, we just have to copy this temporary CSS from here and paste it over here. Now if you just look carefully, one more thing we need to do, that is the divs which we have are aligned one after the another. But within our application, if you can see here, the images or the text are getting stacked one below the another. So there is obviously a problem by the way we are maintaining this layout. So we have to change that layout properly. So for that, what we will be doing on the parent component, that is the navigation component, which is the parent of all there, we will be giving one more property, that is display flex. And once we give a display flex property to this navigation bar component, all the children property of this navigation bar will come one after the another rather than stacking one below the another. So we will just add this property, that is flex, into our main component, that is the navigation component. So let's save it and great. You can see we got more or less two components, that is the logo and the location of our browser. So let's now also import the map icon, and for that we will be again going to our sprite cow, and this time we have to give the map locator, which is nothing but this image over here. So let's select this image and let's also get the coordinates from here. So before that, what we will be doing within the navbar.js, we have to change the CSS a bit. So let's see what we will be doing, and after that I will be explaining in detail that what changes I have done over here to implement this structure. So over here what I have done to get this property something like this, I have created an outer div, and within this parent div I have two components. One is the image, that is this image which we need, and the text, that is the location of the browser. So hopefully this is clear to you. So let's now import this navigation image into our CSS file. So we'll create the same class within the CSS file, and here we will be importing the image from our sprite. So let's select this CSS from here and let's change the image path from our CDN library. So let's save it and great. You can see we also got the same look and feel what we have in our Amazon app. So let's now align it properly, and over here also you can see these are stacked one above the another, which we have to change by introducing the property called as display flex. So we will go to the navbar.js and we will be getting the class name, that is the navbar locator, which is the parent component of this locator file. And over here we will be introducing the display flex property. So let's click on save and great. You can see all of them are now in line the way we have. So let's now decorate these two property so that at least these two property, that is the logo and the location, looks exactly the way it is over here. So for that what we will be doing, we will be going to the logo image, which is this one, and here to align this image at the middle we have to give a specific margin at both sides of this image. So let's do it within our CSS file, and here within this logo we will be setting the margin left and right of this image. So let's give a margin of 18 pixels, and great. You can see our image got successfully located horizontally at the middle, and it is looking exactly the same it is within our Amazon app. So let's copy this attribute from here and place it within our CSS file, and let's also align this property too, which means the locator tag, and for that we will go into the locator tab, and within this locator we will be also giving a margin to it. So let's give a margin of 20 pixels. So it's looking quite brilliant at the middle. Only thing is like we just have to reduce the distance between this image and the locator. So we have to just mention it 0 pixel on both sides. So let's copy this attribute from here and let's paste it within our CSS file. Let's also do a small change, that within this image and the text we have to place a small margin between these two, And for that, what I will be doing, within this location file, I will be giving a small margin on the left side of this text. And great, you can see it is looking quite brilliant. So you can just compare this to, it is already looking quite brilliant the way we have the navigation bar at the top. Now let's implement another important component, and that is the search bar. And the way we will be implementing the search bar is quite simple. What we will be doing, we will first go to our navbar.js, and here after the logo, we will be creating another div component called as the search bar. And if you look carefully, this entire structure can be subdivided into three components. One is this drop down, then comes the textual area, and then comes a search bar. So this entire component we also have to divide into three sections: section 1, section 2, and section 3. So what we will do, within this parent section, we will be creating three sections. This is section 1, this is section 2, and this is section 3. And within this second section, we will be having our text box for having the search functionality. So we will be importing input type called as text, and we will add a CSS class so that we can customize this text box accordingly. So let's copy this CSS class file from here and let's paste it within the navbar.css. So in ideal case, we should actually keep this in a separate React component. But since we are not doing an entire search functionality here, I am just keeping it simple and I am placing the text file within this navbar component. So let's save it and let's see how it is looking. So over here you can see we got a simple text box, something like this. Now let's decorate it even further so that it looks something like the actual one. So let's first give the height and width of this component. So we'll give the height as 40 pixel and we will set the width as 640 pixel. So brilliant, we got a search bar. Let's now also give a margin at the top. So let's give a margin top of 8 pixel so that we can center align this stuff. And let's copy this and paste it within our CSS file. So brilliant, we got the component. Now the next thing that we have to do is we have to introduce this two component, that is a drop down something like this, and the search bar which have a search icon, that is the icon of the magnify class. So let's first build this component. So on our third section which we have defined, let's include one more image, and this will be the search image. So I will be creating a div component and will give a class name as search icon. So let's place this class name on the CSS file and let's get this magnify image from our sprite file. And over here you can see this is the image which we are looking for. So let's select it and let's get the attribute from here. So let's copy this and let's place it within this icon. And we will do the similar activity of changing the URL to the sprite, and let's save it. And bingo, you can see we got the image file somewhere. Now we again have to align it properly horizontally, and for that we will be using the flex property over here on the parent component. So let's give a class name to this parent component and let's include it within our CSS file, and we will give the property as display flex. And great, you can see we got the image located somewhere. Now let's provide the height and width so that it looks something like this. So what we will be doing, we will be targeting this image and we will be doing the inline CSS. So first thing first, I will be setting the background color to yellow, which is actually not the color code they have used. But as of now, I will keep it as yellow so that I can understand what I am doing. And I will set the height and width of this component. And let's give the width as 48 pixels. So great, we got something like this. Now let's exactly provide the color code of this layout. So we'll use our color picker and we will try to get the color code from here. So this is the color code which Amazon is using for this search bar. So let's give the color code over here. And great, it is looking quite brilliant. Now if you look carefully on this image, you can see there is a rounded corner on the both sides of this div, and we have to also implement the same thing over here. And for that, what we will be doing, we will be setting the property as border radius. So we got the border on this two side and we got a sharp edge on this side. So this is looking quite good. So let's copy this tags from here and let's place it within our CSS file. So first for this, we have to go to the navigation bar and let's first create a class associated with it. So let's now fine tune it even further, and within this icon, that is this magnify glass, we have to centrally align this magnify glass within the div. So for that, what we will be doing, we will be giving a margin of 13 pixels. And great, you can see this is looking quite brilliant. So the only problem that I see is this is not properly aligned. So let's also give a margin at the top and create. So actually right now in the middle, but over here you can see there is a small height alignment which we have to fix. So I will just decrease the height by few pixels, and let's also decrease top margin of the image by few pixels and create. You can see we are also having a similar navigation bar the way we have in our Amazon app. The only pending thing that we have is the left hand side drop down. So let's start with building this left hand side drop down from the scratch. And building this drop down is quite an easy task because over there we just have to import one HTML tag, that is the select option, which is used for creating the drop down. So let's go to our code, and here in the navigation bar where we were creating the search box, here on the first div we will be creating the drop down. So let's do it quickly without wasting much time. So we'll include a select tag, and over here we will be giving some options for selecting a value. So let's see what are the value present on the drop down. So here you can see we have all, deals, Alexa, Amazon, and there are a lot of things over here. But just for our cloning purpose, I will be adding few things in our drop down. So let's implement that. So let's give the first one as all, followed by Alexa and few others. So we are done. Let's save it and let's see how it is looking in the browser. So great, we got a drop down here with some value. Now let's start with the CSS part of it. So for that I will be doing an inline CSS over here so that it will be quick and easy. So let's first define a width to this component, and let's also give a height to this drop down. Let's provide a margin at the top. And great, it's looking quite brilliant. Now let's just change the color over here. So this is the color code which I got from the Amazon website. So now let's give a border radius to give it an exact look and feel of this component. And brilliant, it is looking quite good. Let's now compare it with the actual one. So over here you can see the text all is present somewhere in the middle of this component. So let's give a text align last as equal to center, and bingo, we got the component something similar to what we have on our Amazon website. So let's copy this code from the browser and put it into our CSS file. Let's save it, and amazing, you can see we got the exact look and feel how we have the Amazon app. Now let's start with building this part of the application one by one, and let's do it quickly because we have lot of things to cover in the later part of this video. So as of now I will be skipping few of the attributes here like the flags and all this thing, and let's implement this three component over here. So in our navigation bar.js, after the search bar I will be creating three more tags for three components. So the first one will be the hello sign in. So let's put the tag over here. Next one will be returns and order. And the last one will be the cart, which will be actually having two components inside. One is the image URL, which we will get from our sprite, and next is the text, that is cart. So let's save it and let's see how it is coming onto our browser. So great, you can see over here we got all the text. Only thing we just need to implement the CSS accordingly. So let's start with one by one. So that's great. Here we have given a proper class to each and every component. Let's proceed with the designing part of it. So here again we will go for the browser CSS. So first we have to give a proper color to it. So let's give a color as white. And we have to give a height and width of this component. So before going to the height and width of the component, let's give the white color to each and every component so that it will be easy for us to understand the component layout. So we have given the coloring over here. Now if you just look carefully, you can see that this element, that is the hello sign in with the account and list, this is actually coming in the two lines. So we have to also make something like that. So for that, what I will be doing here within this hello sign in, I will be creating two divs, breaking that element into two parts. One is the topmost layer and another is the bottom layer. So for that, the hello sign in will be my topmost layer, and the next layer will be account and list. So let's save it and create. You can see we got the two components one after the another. So this is looking quite brilliant. The rest of the fine tuning we will be doing very soon. So let's also do the same thing for returns and orders. So here I will be breaking this into two divs. One is for the returns and the next one goes for the and order. So let's save it and let's provide the CSS property for each and every component. So one more thing, if you have noticed, for each and every component are sharing the same CSS text color over here. So what we will be doing, we will be adding just one more CSS property, that is navbar text, to make it simple. And within this navbar text, I will be just adding this property, that is color equal to white, and thus all the content that are coming on the right hand side of this will be structured as a white. Now let's define the height and width of each and every component so that we can align it properly. So let's do it accordingly. So for that, what we will be doing, here we will be targeting this component, and let's give a height and width of this component. So let's give a width over here, width of 120 pixel, so that's great. And let's also give a width to this returns and order. So that's brilliant. So let's also provide those properties in our CSS. Now one more thing we will be doing is we will be doing an inline CSS to these two components, so that you also get to know how to provide an inline CSS to any React.js property. So what we will be doing, we will be giving an inline style to each of the text provided over here. And here first we have to give the font size. So let's decrease the font size by 14 pixel. Similarly for accounts, we will be also giving a inline CSS for this text. And for this account and list, I will be giving a font weight as bold. So let's save it and let's see how it is working. So amazing. You can see it is looking quite nice the way it is in our Amazon app. So let's give a top margin and the left margin for this container over here. So for our navbar sign in property, here we will be giving a margin top of 10 pixel and the margin left of 50 pixel. Let's save it, and brilliant, you can see this is looking quite nice. So now let's start with implementing these two components over here. So mostly these are quite simple things to implement if you just have the simple knowledge of HTML and CSS. These have nothing to do with the React properties. So let's also implement these two components over here. So for that, what we will be doing, so here also I will be giving a margin top to this component, and for this I will be giving a margin left of 10 pixel. So let's save it, and brilliant, you can see it's looking quite nice. Only thing I have to do again, I have to provide an inline CSS for reducing the size and the width property for this return and order. So I will be copying this from here, and let's paste it for our return tag. Similarly for the orders, I will be doing the same thing. So let's save it, and brilliant, you can see it is already looking quite brilliant. Now let's implement this cart tag, and for that, first thing that we need is an image, something like this. So let's see where we will be getting this image, and for that we have to go to our sprite cow, and over here if you see, here lies the image which we are looking for. So let's get the image from here. So let's copy it and let's put the correct image URL in our CSS tag. So I will be giving a class name as cart image, and let's add it in our CSS property. So I will be copying the actual URL from where we have hosted, that is in our CDN library. So brilliant, you can see we got the image picture over here, but I think I have selected a wrong image which I do not require right now. So let's see what the image over here. So this is the reverse of what I have selected. So let's go back and let's copy this image. So let's select it one more time. So this is the only part I need to change. So let's change this part, and let's give an height and width of the component, and let's save it. And one more thing I have to just change is this tag will not be an image tag, rather it will be a div tag for holding the image. So let's provide a div tag, and also let's provide a div tag for the text component. So let's save it, and brilliant, you can see this is looking quite nice. So if you look carefully over here, you can see that the image and the text which we have provided are stacked one above the another. So what we will be doing here, we will be providing a display flex property. So let's see, it's looking quite brilliant. Now let's provide a proper height and width of this component, and also the alignment to this component. So what we have to do within this cart property, I will be providing a margin at the top of 10 pixel. So these are properly aligned. So now what we have to do, I have to move this cart text somewhere in the footer section of this image. So for that, what I will be doing, I will be providing a margin top of few pixel for this text. So let's give it as 30 pixel, and let's see. So it's having no effect. Let's see why. So here you can see that the cart text is outside our div component, and that is why there was no effect for this text. So let's go back and let's see. So great, you can see that the text went at the footer of this cart icon. So let's align it properly. So I think 20 pixel is fine for this cart. Yeah, and let's provide a bold property for this text. So font weight, that is bold. And brilliant, you can see we got the exact component how it is looking for our navigation bar over here. Now let's provide the cart item, that is the total number of items in the cart within this icon. And for that, what I will be doing, I will be providing one more text within our cart item. So let's create a div over here and let's give a class name for this cart item. And as of now, let's make it a 0, but this won't be a static variable, but rather it will be a variable that is coming from the outside component, because the total number of cart items changes based on the amount of item you add into your cart. So that is basically a variable that we will be generating from other component, and over there we will be seeing that how we can transfer one property from one component to another. So as of now, let's focus on this designing part. So what I will be doing, I will be providing a class property over here. So let's make the font weight as bold. Now if you see carefully, the item that is 0 should be within the cart. To achieve that, what I will be doing, I will be giving a position tag that is relative, and I will be moving that to a bit left as 20 pixels. Let's save it, and brilliant, you can see the value 0 is now within the cart. And also I will be changing the top by few pixels, and also let's change the color for this text. So amazing, we got the exact look and feel what we need. So let's copy it and put it within this cart item. Save it, and that's it. So this is looking quite brilliant. Now only thing that I have to do over here is I have to just align few pixels here and there so that it looks exactly the same how it is in our Amazon app. So I believe you can easily implement that according to your wish. So I'm leaving that part of the work for you guys to implement at home. So let's proceed with our next part, and that is the second part of our navigation bar, and that is this component, which is also a static component in nature, which is actually a hyperlink to a particular page. So it's nothing special but just a router for our React component. So let's implement that property also. So for that, I will be going back to our navigation bar property, and here once we are done with all the code, I will be adding one more property, that is this footer item. So I will not be creating a separate component for this one, but if you want, you can really do so. But rather over here, to make it simple, I will be creating a separate div for the navigation footer. So over here we have the top portion, and this is the bottom portion of our navigation bar. And let's start with the implementation of this part of the code. So for that, what I have to do, I have to first give a proper height and width of this component. And so I will copy the CSS part from here, and I will be providing the CSS properties in our browser. So let's go into our component. So let's give a width of 100 VW, which means the total width of the screen. And let's also provide a height to this component. So let's give a height of 30 pixels, and also let's provide a background color to it. So it's brilliant, and let's change the color code to white. So here you can see we have already accomplished something which looks more or less similar to our Amazon app. So let's start with implementing these properties over here. So this is nothing but a simple list of text which we have to provide, and after that we have to provide a router to each and every pages for our Amazon app. So this is a quite simple implementation. So let's do it. So first what I will be doing, I will be copying the CSS property from our browser and put it into our dedicated CSS file. And now let's go to the navigation bar, and let's here put the div tags for listing each and every component. So the first component that we will be having is a bestseller. So let's give it the bestseller, and let's provide a CSS property for this one so that we can decorate each and every component together. So let's give a class name to this one, and let's repeat it few more times to get all the components. So let's put the correct values over here. So let's change it one by one. Brilliant, we are done with all the navigation part. Let's save it and let's see how it is looking. So here you can see again all the texts are coming one below the another because we have not given the display flex property over here. So let's provide the CSS property on the parent component, that is the navbar footer. So now you can see all of them are in the single line. So for that, what I will be doing, I will be copying the parent CSS property, that is navbar footer text, and let's provide the CSS inline for this text. So brilliant, you can see this is looking more or less same, the similar thing which we have in our Amazon app. So let's copy the CSS from here and let's paste it in our CSS file. So great, you can see we also got a similar layout like the way we have in our Amazon app. The next thing that we have to do is we have to incorporate this picture. So this is nothing but a simple image file provided, which I believe you can easily incorporate and put it in your HTML file. So I'm skipping it as of now. So here right now, if you compare with the actual Amazon app and the clone of the Amazon app which we are creating, you can see this looks more or less similar the way we have our actual app. The only difference we have over here is by few pixels, which I believe you can easily do it at your home so that your Amazon apps looks exactly brilliant and it looks exactly ditto copy of our actual Amazon application. Now let's move forward with our next component, and that is the actual page, that is the home page for our Amazon app, which is our main page. So here the first thing that we have to do is we have to provide a huge image to set the context, and after that we have to create 2 to 3 components for building these items over here. So this won't take that much time to implement. So without wasting much time, let's start with the implementation. But before that, I will be also fine-tuning the CSS property a bit so that my apps also look exactly the similar clone of our Amazon app. So let's start with building the main page over here. So I'm done with my part of the changes, and this is how our clone Amazon is looking like, and this is the actual Amazon app. So you can see there is not much difference between the two applications from the navigation part. So frankly telling, there was not much things I need to change. Only thing I have provided is I have given few more pixel of margin over here. Now let's start with our main page, that is this component. So for that, what I will be doing, I will be closing all the components that are open because we don't need anything over here. And let's start with the main page, that is this component. So the first thing that we have to give is we have to set a background image, that is this image. So as of now, just to make it simple and easy, I'm just ignoring this carousel property for this background image. Rather, I'm just giving one image and that will be a static one. But if you want, you can easily incorporate the background property as carousel. I will be providing the code also in the description below. So let's now focus on implementing this background property and this component one at a time. So the first thing that I will be doing, I have to first set a background image to this parent div. So for that, I will be providing a class name to this property. And let's also associate a CSS file for this main page. And let's incorporate that at the top. So the first thing that we have to give here is we have to set the height and width of this parent div, and that is the main page. So we'll give a height and width here, and then the height of this property. Now let's provide a background image here, and for that also we will be using the images that we have already uploaded in our serial library. So let's import that. So here I have already provided the image that you need for this development purpose. So as of now, we can get this image which I have downloaded few days ago from the Amazon application. And let's also give a width to this image component. So we'll give a background size as 100 VW so that the size of the image will be the exact size of the width of our browser. So let's save it. And brilliant, you can see this is how our Amazon application looking right now. Believe me, for a particular second I was also thinking that whether this is our Amazon application or the real one, because this is actually looking the similar ditto copy of the actual Amazon app. So let's now start with building this component one at a time, which is the div which will give the advertisement to each and every component. So as I have already told you at the very beginning, this is nothing complicated, because over here if you see, this is actually two components which we are dealing with. One having the 4 image and another is the 1 image provided over here. And believe me, this is quite straightforward and very simple thing to implement. So let's do it one by one. So let's now focus with one component, that is the first component, and for that we will be creating our component within the main page. So let's create a directory over here. So let's name this component as advertisement 1, which will have only one image within that. And let's create one more directory with advertisement 4, which means that it will have 4 images together. So great, we got the two components separately. Now let's start with creating one component at a time. And for that we will be creating a file called as advertisement1.js. So let's do it. Now this time we will do something different. This time we will be implementing this component using the functional component. So if you are a bit familiar with the React, you must be knowing that you can create a component by two approaches. Number one is the class-based component and number two is the functional component. So many people have this confusion in mind that which component should we use in our application. So frankly telling, now there is no hard and first rule that you should use the class-based approach rather than a functional approach or vice versa. So it's totally depend on your way of implementation or whatever you feel comfortable. So let me tell you, before the introduction of the React 16.8, we used to use the functional component as a presentable component because it was stateless at that time, which means that all the presentable things, that means dealing with the image and all these things which have a static content, that will go within the functional component, and anything that deals with logic or some state variable changes comes within the class-based component. But after the introduction of 16.8, which means after the introduction of the React hooks, both of them are more or less similar. And within the functional component, right now you can do exactly whatever you want, what we used to do in our class component. So right now there is no hard and fast rule that which approach we will be taking for creating the component. So mostly if you are working in an organization and if they have some legacy code on React, they will be most likely to use the class component rather than the functional component because they're used to that class component approach. And one more thing is like, those who are coming from the Java background, they are more likely to go towards the class components because of the fact we already have the concept of the class-based approach in our Java language. And that is why those who are new to this React framework coming from the Java background prefer to use the class component. But frankly telling, class component is getting out of trend and all the modern applications built on React are using the functional approaches. So over here also we will be start implementing this component with the functional approach so that you are also familiar with both the approaches by which we can create a component in our application. So let's start with creating the advertisement component over here. So let's use our shortcut, that is RSF. And here we got the template for our functional component. So let's start with the implementation. So to implement this component, that is this one, we have to first divide this entire component into three parts. Number one is the header part, number two is this image, and number four is the see more option. So let's divide this component into three parts and let's implement this one by one. So this is basically a simple and the straightforward approach and it will not be too much complicated. So let's start with this implementation. So let's first create three divs for dividing this entire component into three parts: the header, the body, and the footer. And let's associate the classes accordingly. So we are done with creating the classes. Let's import a class file here. So brilliant, we have done the import. Let's start with the decoration. So what we will do, we will copy all these classes into our CSS file. And we will start the implementation one by one. So the first container, that is the header part, will contain a text something like this, that is up to 70% off. So let's give it as a hard-coded string. The next part will be our image. And the third one will be the see more hyperlink. So let's also provide it. So you are almost done with our first component, that is this one. Let's now focus on the CSS part of it. And before that, we first have to import this advertisement one within our main page. So what we will be doing, within this main page, we will be creating a div, and within this div content, I will be importing the first component, that is advertisement one. So let's save it and let's see in the browser. So you can see here we got a component imported somewhere which is obviously not looking the way it should look like because we have not given the proper CSS to it. So let's do it one by one. So what we will be doing, we will go into the advertisement one component and we will do the CSS part of it. So here within the advertisement one, let's first give an height and width of this container. And let's also provide a background color. And brilliant, you can see we also got a container which looks something like this one. Let's copy this temporary CSS from here and put it into our CSS file. So what we will be doing on the header portion, we will be setting a font width of 21 pixel and line height of 27 pixel. So let's save it. So you can see it's already looking good. Let's increase the font weight also to bold. So great. So let's provide an inner padding of 15 pixel. This is looking quite brilliant. Let's now import the image from our CDN library and let's also do this see now option. So let's go to the CDN library and let's get a relevant image for that. Let's copy it and let's paste it within our file. So let's save it and let's see how it is looking. So it's obviously quite big. So let's give a width of 300 pixel. This is quite good. Now let's give a proper padding on the left and the right sides. And brilliant, it is looking at the center. Now let's align this C mode somewhere in the middle. So I believe the container that I have created over here is a bit more than what is required. So as of now, let's focus on aligning this thing properly. So in the C now, that is on the footer part, I will be giving a padding on all sides of 15 pixels. So now it is centered. So it's good. Now just decrease the height of this canvas, that is the main component. So let's give 380 pixel. And brilliant, you can see we got the exact component the way it is looking over here. So it's looking quite brilliant right now. Now what we have to do, we have to just align this thing at the middle of the page. So we have to give a proper margin at the top of this container, and for that what we will be doing here on the main page, that is this one, I will be deleting this content, and over here I will be providing a top margin of few pixels so that we can get a desired margin over here. So let's provide an inline CSS for this one. And brilliant, you can see this is looking quite nice. Now since we are done with only one component, that is this one, let's now repeat this component multiple number of times to see whether we are also getting the same look and feel like this or not. So what I will be doing, I will be copying this advertisement one component and I will keep repeating it among itself. So let's save it, and brilliant, you can see we got the component one by one. So the only thing that we have to change over here is we need to provide the display flex property so that it comes on the single line. So let's give a display flex over here, save it, and brilliant, you can see how progressively we are doing the things over here so that our UI also look the same the way we have in our Amazon app. So let's now do some fine tuning of this component. So what I have to do on this component.css, I will be providing a margin on the left and the right side. So let's put a margin of 10 pixel and let's save it, and brilliant, we can see we have the components one after the another. Now let's start with building the another component that we need, that is a component with 4 images associated over here. So frankly telling, that won't be a too much complicated things to implement. So let's implement it and let's see how we can do the complete implementation as soon as possible. So we will start with creating the another component, that is advertisement 4, and let's also create a CSS file for this one. So let's create the component RSF. So we got the React component using the functional approach. And within this functional component, we have to create a layout which will represent a component having 4 images within itself. So let's create a component something like that. So if you look carefully, the basic structure of both this component, that is the component with 1 image and component with 4 images, are more or less same. The only thing that differs is the image layout, that is the body of this component. So let's replicate the existing component and change the body part for this component. So for that, what I will be doing, I will be copying the entire JSX code from here, that is the existing one, and I will be pasting it within our new component. So if you want to have a cleaner code, you can actually do so by creating only single component for different layout. But to make it simple and easy to understand, I am creating 2 components separately, one for 1 image and the another for 4 images. So let's change the body tag for this component. So what I have to do, I have to just change this part of the code. But before that, I will be copying the CSS part also from our previous component. So let's get the CSS from here and paste it within our advertisement 4 component. So here you can see I am creating a lot of duplicate code which is actually not recommended for the production purpose. So what you actually can do is, for both the component, you can simply refer to a particular CSS file and you can easily share a common CSS between the 2 components. So let me now enhance this component. So for this component, what I have to do, I will be first copying this image tag and I will be replicating it for the 4th time, because we have 4 images as the advertisement purpose. So great, I have copied it for the 4th time. Now the only thing that I need to change is I have to give the proper height and width of this image component. So for that, I will be replacing this width property from here and I will be associating a class name for this image tag. So let's do it one by one. So great, we got the image as well as the class property associated with each image. Let's now provide the height and width of this component so that it looks something like the way we have in our Amazon website. So let's do it. So let's give a width of 164 pixel and height of 100 pixel. And let's save it and let's see how it is coming into our browser. So it is not coming because of the fact we have not imported the newly created component in our main page.js. Let's import one component over here and let's save it. So here you can see that the layout is not looking what we have expected. So let's go back to our code. So the small mistake that I have done over here is I have forgot to import the CSS property in our component file. So let's import it. Now let's save it and let's see the browser. So great, you can see we got the component the way we expected. So over here you can see we got the 4 images aligned one by one. So here if you look carefully, I see there are a couple of problems for this component. The component got shrink to a particular size and the image which we have assigned over here are getting stacked one below the another. So the simple solution to this problem is, first, for the main component, that is this parent one, here we have to set this width as our mean width. And thus it solves one of the problem, and the second problem is like we can see that the image are getting stacked one below the another. And to solve this problem, what we have to, within this body tag, we have to provide the property called as display flex. And great, you can see that the image are now not stacked one below the another, rather it is arranged sidewise one after the another. And here one more small change I have to do. Here if you look carefully, all the images are going out of the range of our container, and this is because of the property of the flex. And to solve this problem, we have to assign one more property of the flex, and that is the flex wrap. So on the parent component, we will be giving a flex wrap and we will assign it to wrap. So this will solve our problem. Only thing I have to do is I have to decrease the image size which I have given over here. So let's decrease the width by a few pixels. And great, you can see we got the exact look and feel what we need for this component. So let's also provide a small margin around this image component. And great, you can see this is how our new component is looking like with the 4 images within itself. So let's copy this temporary CSS from here into our CSS file. Now if you look carefully, there is only a small problem, and that is all the images are not properly aligned, because the component is ending somewhere over here and these images should be on the proper alignment. So that we can easily resolve by changing the height and width of the images associated over here. So I'm ignoring that part as of now, but I believe that is a small change that you can do at your home. So the next problem that I will be solving over here is quite similar to the problem that we have faced earlier while arranging all the images for this component. So if you look carefully within this layout, I have imported at least 6 advertisement components within this main page. But I can see only 4 of them within this page, because the rest 2 has went on the right hand side of our image, and this is because of the flex property which we have just discussed right now. And this can be easily solved by providing a simple display wrap to our main component. So let's do it. So since this is the parent component of all the advertisement content, so I will be providing a flex wrap in this particular div. So let's save it, and great, you can see right now the component is aligned properly. So here we have the 4 component, and after that, once we are done with this width, it got wrapped to the next row, and that is this one. So now we can freely add whatever component we want. So let's test that feature over here. And great, you can see how clean, neat and amazing our clone is looking right now. So let's compare it with the main application. So here you can see this is looking more or less similar. The only small thing is like here in the background they have set a particular color, and that is why the components are visible quite prominently. So let's also provide a background color to this layout, and for that within our main page.css I will be providing a background color to this entire component, that is the entire main page. So let's do it. Let's save it, and brilliant, you can see this is how our Amazon is looking right now. So brilliant, you can see how beautifully we have designed each and every component of our Amazon app, and this is how our Amazon app is looking right now. So this is our Amazon, and this is the actual Amazon app, which is actually looking pretty similar, and I can proudly conclude that we have successfully cloned the front page of our Amazon app. So now let's go into some deeper functionalities, and let's try to clone some other properties also. So the next component that we have to clone is this long advertisement bar, provided in our application. So this is a pretty straightforward implementation. So I will be skipping this part of the code right now, but if you want, you can easily get the actual code in the GitHub link I will be providing in the description. So feel free to go through that code if you face any difficulty while implementing this functionality. So now since we are done with cloning our first page, that is the home page of our application, now let's go deeper into some actual content, and for that let's clone the mobile display page, which will display all the available mobiles present in our Amazon website. So let's click on the mobile over here. So here you can see this gives a lot of images and brands that are available in the Amazon website. So let's skip all this and let's implement the actual or the real content, that is the display page for a particular product. So let's search it with Apple, and this is actually the page we are planning to clone, because with the help of this page you can easily place an order into our website. So let's now start with cloning this page one at a time. And for that what we need, we have to first create a different page, and that is a display page. So until now we were mainly focusing on the home page, but right now we will be focusing on the display product page. So let's create a new component called as display product, which is actually a separate component from the home page. So let's first create a directory as display content, and let's create a React component within this folder. So here also we will be going with the functional approach of creating component. So let's start with the designing this part of the code. So for that, first what we have to do, we have to go to the app.js, and here we will be importing one more component, and that is the display content. Let's save it, and as of now let's get rid of this main page provided over here. So let's comment it out and let's save it. So great, you can see in our new page, that is the display content page, we have the header which we have already implemented, as well as we have a blank canvas where we will be implementing this layout which we have for displaying all the components for a particular product. So let's start with the implementation part. So implementing this page is also quite simple and easy to do, and over here we won't be dealing too much on each and every detail that are associated over here, because in this page there are hundreds and hundreds of small functionality that obviously we cannot implement in a limited amount of time. So we will be mainly focusing on the real component, and that is how to place an order into our database and how to manage the data flow among different parts of the component. So to make things simple over here, I will be just creating a left panel and the right panel, and I will be just mocking few of the items from here, and on the right hand side of the canvas I will be placing few images with some dummy contents which will have some product name, the rating, as well as the price detail associated with each and every component. So let's start with the simple implementation of this entire layout one by one. So we'll go to the display content property, and here within the display content we first have to distribute this page into two parts. One is the left hand side and another is the right hand side part. So let's create two div over here, and let's name them as the left hand side and the right hand side component. So this will be our left hand side and this will be the right hand side component. So let's first create the two component over here. And let's import both the component from the main content, that is the display content. And let's save it. So let's see how it is coming. So great, we got the left hand side as well as right hand side, but obviously it is not looking the way we have expected. So let's provide the complete CSS and let's provide the individual property for each and every component. So the first thing that we have to provide is the width of each and every component. So this will be our left hand side component and this will be our right hand side. So let's provide the height and width property for each and every component, and for that I will be creating a CSS file over here. So great, we have created a dedicated CSS file for each and every component. Let's now provide the actual CSS property for the left hand side. For that I will be first creating a class called as left hand side sidebar. And let's also do the similar activity for the right hand side panel. So now since we have given an approx height and width of both the component, that is the left hand side and the right hand side sidebar, let's now provide a display flex properties so that both the components gets aligned one beside the another. So let's save it and create. Here you can see we got a separate left hand side panel and the right hand side panel over here. Now let's start with the implementation of the left hand side panel one by one. So the first thing that we have to do, we have to specify a border line on our left hand side navigation bar. So great, over here you can see we got a divider between the two components. Let's now fine-tune the code so that it looks more or less similar the way we have the sidebar over here. So for that, what we will be doing, I will be first copying the local CSS from here into our CSS file. So let's now save it and let's start with the implementation of this left canvas one by one. So what we will be doing to make it simple and easy, we will be cloning only one filter, and that is the brand filter which we have on the left hand side panel. So let's first understand that how this filter will work. So on the right hand side of our canvas, which means on this side, we will have all the list of mobiles that are available on our database, and on the left hand side there will be a filter with the brand name, and once a user select a particular brand from this filter, all the mobile phones for that brand should get listed out on this right hand side. So this is the simple logic of the filtration that we will be implementing over here. So let's start with creating a panel which will have a filter with all the brand name on our left hand side. So what we will be doing, we will go to our code, and here on the left hand side panel we will be creating a list of brands that are available on our database. So for the sake of simplicity purpose, we will be hard coding the name of the brands in our website. But actually in real world, let me tell you how it works. So in real world application, we do not hard code the filters in our JSX or in HTML file. Rather, all this list comes from our database as a response from the server using the REST APIs, and seeing all the list of the brands coming in the response from the API, we populate the brand name on our filter canvas. So this is how actually or how real implementation of any particular website happens. But over here, to make it simple, I will be hard coding few of the strings from here. So let's start implementing a functionality something like that. So here on the left hand side panel, we will be creating a set of checkbox with some brand names. So let's do it. And let's save it. And great, you can see here we got the list of checkbox with different brand name. So here you can see we have a brand name followed by the list of the checkbox. So let's build it accordingly. So what I will be doing, on the first div, I will be creating a label called as brand, and I will be providing some CSS class around it. And great, so let's save it and let's do the inline CSS in our browser. So the first thing that I will be providing is I will be providing a margin of few pixels. So let's give a 40 pixel padding. So yes, that looks good. Let's also decrease the width from here. So let's make it 200. Now what we have to do, we have to provide the CSS for our brand labels. So let's first make this thing as bold. So this is much better. And also let's provide a margin across the text. So let's give a 10 pixel margin. So we are done with this branding tag. Now let's provide the CSS for all this component, that is the name of the brand. And for that, what I will be doing, I will be associating one more class name on this label component. So let's save it. Let's now provide the CSS for this brand name. So great, we got the brands one after the another. So let's copy this thing and let's paste it within our file. So here you can see that our left hand side of the canvas is starting somewhere from here, but in our application is a bit off. So let's provide a correct width to this component. So let's change it accordingly. So this looks fine. Also now change the color of this margin and let's save it. And great, you can see our left hand side panel is also looking somewhat great. So here you can see we have a lot of brands listed over here, which you can easily do it at your home based on your need. But as of now, for me to show the functionality to you guys, I will be making it quite simple and easy, and I will be listing it with only 3 brands over here. So let's now focus on the main component, and that is the right hand side panel. And once we are done with the right hand side panel, then we will merge the left hand side with the right hand side panel so that the filtration of this entire page works seamlessly. So let's start with implementing the right hand side component over here. And to implement the right hand side component, what we have to do, we have to simply create one component, and that is this entire layout which will describe the properties of a particular mobile, which will have the image, the name of the phone, the price tag and the rating. So let's implement a simple component something like this. So first what we will be going on the right hand side component, and here we will be creating a separate component called as product. So let's create a file called as product, and let's also make it a functional component. And let's import this product component from our right hand side panel. So let's import one of the component and let's start with the implementation process. So here you can see we got our first component called as product. Let's now implement it something like this. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to provide an image property to this file. So we'll create a div that will hold the image for this product, followed by the name of the product, then the rating, and at the last the price of the product. So great, we got a structure of the component. Now let's start with the CSS part of it. So we will first provide a class name to each and every component. And let's put the class name in our CSS file. So great, we are done with the basic setup. Let's save it and let's see how it is looking in the browser. So great, you can see we got a placeholder for the name, price, tag and the image properties for this product. So let's start implementing one by one. So the first thing that we need is an image for our Apple mobile. So for that what we will do, we'll go to our CDN library and let's get the hyperlink of this product. And let's provide a height and width of this component. This is looking good. Now let's provide the names and everything. So what we will be doing here, we will be providing the CSS for this component. So this is looking good. Let's now provide the rating and the price over here. Let's do the inline CSS so that we can do it quickly. And great, this is looking quite nice. Let's now copy all the CSS property from here and let's paste it into our CSS file. So great, over here you can see we got a template which looks more or less similar like the way we have over here in our Amazon app. So we are not going into the detailed analysis of all these things like prime delivery, free customer and all this stuff, because those are minute HTML and CSS property which I believe you can easily do it at your home. Rather, I will be focusing on the real meat of the content, and that is how to implement the real functionality over here. So let's start with modifying a bit of the CSS property and let's make this content dynamic so that we do not have to hardcode all the strings and images into our JSX file. Rather, we can get the data from the JSON that are coming from our database. So let's first focus on the CSS part a bit more and then we will make it dynamic. So let's first complete the implementation of the product component. So let me import one more product in our right hand side sidebar so that we can understand that how it is coming. So let's save it. And great, here you can see both of them are coming one after the another because of the fact we have not given the display flex property into our right hand side component. So let's provide a display flex here and let's save it. And great, you can see this is right now looking amazing. Let's now provide a definite height and width of this component, and also let's provide a proper margin on the left and the right side of this component. So let's do it inline. And great, this is looking quite good. Let's copy this CSS into our file. And great, you can see this is looking amazing. So let's import few more products on our right hand side components so that we can understand that the layout on the right hand side component are getting distributed correctly or not. So let's import few products from here and let's save it. So great, you can see all the product got listed. Here in our Amazon site, they are placing 4 components on a particular row and rest of them are going to the next line. So we will be also doing the same thing. So to implement that, what we will be doing on the right hand side main component, here we will be providing a property called as flex wrap, which we have already seen in our home page. So let's provide a flex wrap over here. So this is looking quite brilliant. The only thing we have to do is we have to feed 4 products over here. So we will just decrease the width a bit. So you can see this is looking quite brilliant. So this is our Amazon app and this is the actual Amazon app. So the only difference is here we got a wide varieties of images for different mobiles, and in our app we have some hard-coded image with some dummy content which we will make it dynamic right now. So let's first copy the CSS that we have done on the browser, and then we will focus on how to make this thing dynamic, so that in our next video when we will be integrating our backend API with this frontend, at that time it will be easy for us to integrate both the codes. So let's make the product component dynamic for this page. So I hope you got the idea that why we are making it dynamic. Because here this is a React component, and based on the parameter that we are sending into our component, the UI should also render accordingly. So for example, if I am sending a Samsung image into our parameter, the product component should render the Samsung logo rather than the hard-coded logo that we have passing over here. So let's make the things dynamic and let's see how everything will be working for this component. So great, we have copied all the CSS. Now let's make it dynamic. So what we have to do over here to make the things dynamic is pretty easy and straightforward. So what we will be doing here, if you focus on a particular component, which is this one, here you can see for each and every product, all these 4 property, that is the image, the name of the product, the total number of ratings and the price will differ for each and every product. So these are all the components for which we have to make the things dynamic for this content. So let's see how we will make a component dynamic in our functional approach of designing a component. So let me first implement that entire flow, and then I will be explaining you in detail that how the things is working over here. So let me first implement the complete flow of making the things dynamic for this component. So let's save it and create. Here you can see for the first component we got all the attributes dynamically, and all these things are blank since we have not passed anything into our variable. So let me first explain you how the things are working over here. So if you look carefully to the product component that we have included into our right side panel, here for the first component, that is product, we are passing the rating, price and the name of the product dynamically as a prop variable. And within this component, that is the product component, all the values that we are passing from the right hand side component are getting stored within this props variable. And then we have to destructure it by doing props.name, props.rating and props.price. And based on this approach, we are making the things dynamic for this component. So let's also make the image dynamic for this component. So what I will be doing, I will be removing this hard-coded string from here, and I will be making the things dynamic. So let's save it and let's pass this value from our product component. So let's give image and let's paste it over here. Let's save it and create. You can see for only one component we are getting the image, because all the rest component that we have over here doesn't have any attribute that we are passing as a parameter, and that is why it is coming as blank, which is quite relevant. So hopefully I believe you got to know that how we are passing the values as a props parameter within a component, and how we are passing the value from our parent component into the child component. Now let's make this code a little more dynamic using the React hooks. And now from here we will understand that how hooks works in React, and how using the hooks you can make the API calls, and how dynamically we can render the UI for our component. So let's implement it one by one. So let me first implement the flow, and then I will let you know how the things are working over here. So here, using the hooks property, that is useState, we have defined a state variable, and that is list of product, which is a type of array. So here you can see at the very initial stage we are pointing it with an empty array. Now let's see how we will be populating the value within the array, and how with the help of the maps we will be displaying all the products into our canvas. So let's implement one more properties of the React hook, and that is the use effect. and let's save it. So let me explain you first that what I have done over here. So here you can see I have used the React hook, and that is the use effect. So use effect is nothing but a function that get calls when the component gets loaded. So it is more or less similar the way we have the component did mount in the React class component. And here also this use effect also does the same functionality. And what we are doing once this component get loaded means once this right hand side panel, entire panel gets loaded, at that time the use effect will get called. And once the use effect will get called, here we actually have to make an API call to fetch all the records from our database relevant to the mobile phone. And once our backend API, which we will be developing in our next video, returns the list of the mobile phone in the form of the REST API, that is in the form of the JSON, which will look something like that. And once we receive this response from our backend REST API, we will be assigning this set of data into our array that we have defined over here, and that is the list of product. So here using the set list of product, we are assigning the entire list into this variable. And once this Ajax call is completed and once this list get populated within this product of list, here we have to dynamically display the content that we are getting from the REST API. So let's implement it one by one so that it will be much more clearer that what I mean to say with this entire flow, because this is the main content of the React and this is the exact thing which will make the things dynamic across your application. So let's start with the implementation and let's start with understanding all the React component one by one. So here I have to first create a loop, that is a map, to get all the list of the product that we are getting from our API. Let's save it and let's see how it is coming on the browser. So here I think I have done a mistake, so let's see. So the mistake that I have done over here is I have formed the JSON incorrectly. Here it won't be equal to, it will be a colon. So now the structure of the JSON is looking good. Let's save it and let's see in the browser. So great, you can see this is looking amazing. We have different products of the mobile and with different data which we are passing as a parameter into our React product component. So let me show you how we can fine tune this code. So here if you look carefully into our code, here you can see we are passing all the attribute of the product as a parameter, but we are just distributing it one by one, which means that we are distributing the name, image and price all separately with separate variable name. So rather than destructuring all these variables over here, we can send the entire object, that is the product object, in a single shot within this content. So let me show you how. So right now what we will be doing, instead of sending each and every parameters, we will be sending the entire object as a single parameter. Let's call it as definition. So you can name this whatever you want and let's pass the entire item as one of the object. So now what we will do, here in the product component, we have to mention that props dot definition dot image, and let's save it. And you can see we got the images one by one, and the main advantage of doing so is, like, for example, in the future I just want to add one more parameter within our JSON. At that time we do not have to mention that in our parameter list. Rather, since we are sending the entire object in a single go, the newly added parameter will also go within the object, and thus it will make our code future proof as well as it will be helpful for us for further enhancement, and that is why we will be doing in this way. So let's modify the other parameters. So let's add the definition tag for the name, rating and price, and let's save it. And great, we got all the contents the way we have expected. So let's now change the definition of our JSON object so that we can get variable data with variable images for our layout, so that we can understand that everything is working seamlessly. So let's do it. So what I will be doing within this right hand side image, here I will be changing the image which I have passed from here. And let's save it. And great, you can see this is looking quite brilliant right now. Let's now add few more details to our product component. So the next UI thing that I will be adding into our product component is this rating bar provided over here. So let's get this rating bar from our material UI library. So we'll go to our material UI and here we will search for the rating tag. So here you can see we got the similar rating tag which we need for our application. So let's get the code from here. So here the first thing that I have to input is a rating from the material UI. So let's copy it and paste it into our imports. And here, since this is a read-only one, which means that the user cannot interact with this one, so we also need a read-only rating bar for our application. So that's great. So the only mistake I have done is should not be within the right side panel, rather it should be within the product component. So let's change it accordingly and let's save it. And let's provide a dummy value for this one. So let's save it and let's see in the browser. And amazing, you can see we got the rating tabs also for our product. Let's now decrease the size of this one so that it looks more or less similar to what we have in our actual component. So for that we will be giving an inline CSS called as style, and we will decrease the font size to 20 pixels. And great, you can see this is looking quite brilliant. Only thing is like there is a small minute pixel wise difference between these two, which I believe you can easily do it at your home. So no big deal. So the next thing that we need for our component is the currency logo. So let's see how we will include that. And for that we will be installing a currency symbol package. So let's import this in our project. So while this is getting imported, let's import the package into our React file. So let's copy this and paste it into our product component. So great, I think the package also got installed. Let's start the application one more time. And here what we have to do to get a particular symbol for any particular currency, we have to call this function that is get symbol from currency. So let's copy this, and since we are in India, we will be calling it by INR. And let's save it, and brilliant, this is looking quite good. So here you can see this is the actual one and this is the copied or the cloned one, which I believe more or less looking quite brilliant over here. So only additional thing that you can add is the other details that are provided over here, like the discount and the prime customers, something like this. So you can do all this extra additional thing according to your requirement. So I'm leaving it as of now. So I think our product display page is more or less ready. Let's now add some additional React feature into it. So what we will be doing first, we will be adding few more data into our REST API. So let's assume these two are also coming. So let's save it and let's see whether everything's lined up properly or not. So yes, this is looking quite nice. Now the next functionality that we have to add is the filter tag over here. So what we have to do is on clicking on a particular filter, our response from the server should also change accordingly. So for example, if I am selecting an Apple product, all the mobiles related to the apples should get listed over here on the right side. But the filter that we are designing over here is not a simple straightforward UI filter, because we are not doing this filtration on the UI layer. Rather, we will be doing it on the backend layer. So let me tell you how the functionality will work. So what usually happens is, for example, if you are having a huge amount of data, at that time, a particular website doesn't load all the contents together. Rather, it does all this loading stuff progressively in the form of pagination. So here you can see at a particular instance of time, only this many products will get listed on our front page. Now if I go into the second page, that is this one, another set of the data will get populated on our next page. And this is how the pagination works into a huge website. And the main advantage of doing a pagination or a progressive loading is that it increases the performance of the website, that is, which means that loading time of the website decreases significantly, and thus it increases the performance of the website. And also here in this website, we will be doing the same thing. What we will be doing, at a particular instance, we will be only loading 10 mobiles at a particular instance of time. And whenever a user scrolls down or go to the next page, another set of 10 mobiles will come from the database and it will show to the user. And in this way, we will increase the performance of the application and we will do a progressive loading of our web page. Now the question is how this is relevant with the filter topic which I was discussing. So the reason behind it is, if you are doing a UI filtration, which means that, for example, we have 10 mobiles of different brands listed on our first page. And here we just need to filter out the mobiles based on Samsung. At that time, we will filter only the contents that are already showing on the dashboard. For example, here we have 10 mobiles, 5 from Apple and 5 from Samsung. Now if I select Samsung mobile, only 5 will come on our right hand side. And thus over here we are doing a UI level filtration, because At a particular instance, maybe there are thousands of other Samsung mobile also present in the database, but we are not doing the filtration on our database. Rather, we are doing a filtration on the UI layer so that the user can select or deselect according to their choice. But the functionality we will be implementing this time will be on a backend search, which means that if I select a Samsung mobile from here, it will first go to the database call and it will try to search out all the Samsung mobile from the database, and based on those collection of data, it will give the top 10 mobiles from our database and it will list down all of them over here in our dashboard. So this type of filtration actually make much more sense for the user who are actually trying to search for a particular phone. So here in our application also, we are also going with this type of approach. So here we won't be doing the filtration in this video. Rather, we will be actually implementing the filter logic in our backend in our next video, and then in our last video, that is in the fourth video, over there we will be integrating this UI with the backend, and at that time you will see how these two things will work together so that we can get a complete website for our Amazon. So hopefully this logic makes some sense to you that why we are doing a backend filtration rather than a front-end UI filter. So since we are not doing a brand filter right now, let's move to our next topic, and that is placing the order for our customer. So let's see the functionality that we need to implement. So here you can see if I want to order this product, I just have to click it and it will open a new tab for us where it will list out all the necessary details of a particular product, and it will give an option to buy now or add to cart. So here also you can see this is a simple web page with some minimum functionality of placing the order. So let's start with building this part of the application also, and let's complete the entire flow for our Amazon cloning. And for that, what I will be doing, I will be going to our app.js, and here we will be creating another component, and that is place order. So let's first create a component called as place order. So great, here we have created a component called as place order. Let's include the place order component from our app.js. So let's save it, and great, you can see we got a page with a blank presentation over here, and we have a header at the top which looks something like the way we have. So let's start with the implementation of this component and let's complete this entire layout quickly. So here in this page you can see we can distribute this entire page into three main components. That is, one is the image, that is the product image, number two is the product detail, and number three is the placing the order content. So this is basically a simple UI implementation. So let's complete this thing quickly, and after that we have to merge all these three components together so that we can get a partial working website from our UI layer. Because obviously all the things which we have done is static right now and we have to make it dynamic. So at the end of the video also we will be seeing how to make some other component dynamic so that it will be easy for us to integrate with our backend code in our fourth video. So without wasting much time, let's start with the implementation of this layout over here. So since you can see this is quite a simple implementation of the UI, so I won't be wasting much time in explaining each and every stuff over here. Rather, I will be doing it quickly, but if you want you can easily follow me along this video. So without wasting much time, let's start with the implementation of this simple UI quickly. So the first thing that I will be making is I will be creating a grid-like structure within this page. So here you can see this page can be subdivided into three parts. This will be one part of the grid, this will be another, and this will be another. So let's first create three grids on this page, and after that we will start with this implementation. So here you can see we are almost done with some of the basic component like the image as well as the description part. So if you want, you can add few more description in this page, but as of now I'm leaving all this work because this is a simple things to implement. So let's implement the another functionality, and that is this buy now stuff. And on the right hand side I will be creating this panel where we will be having two buttons. Number one, the add to cart, and number two, buy now. So here we will be implementing both add to cart and buy now option, and we will see that how we can implement this over here. So the things how it will work is like on clicking on the add to cart, that item that is right now in display will go into our cart, and also it will get saved into our database, so that in the future we can retrieve that product from our cart and we can proceed with the buy now option. Whereas if you click on the buy now, it will directly go to the payment gateway method. So let's start with the implementation of the add to cart and the buy now option. So let's start with the implementation. And great, you can see this is looking somewhat good, which will serve our purpose for the demonstration. So we will start our implementation of adding to cart and buy now from here, and we will see how the things will work in the implementation part. But as of now, for the demo purpose, I will be adding few extra details over here, as well as I will just decorate this context part something like this so that it will look somewhat good and realistic. So let's copy all this data from here into our layout. So I will quickly add all these details from here into our website, and let's start with the implementation of this add to cart and the buy now functionality. So let's see you after I am done with this implementation. So if you need all this code, feel free to go to my GitHub link and get the code from there. So finally, we are done with cloning all the pages for our Amazon website. So let's first see what are the components that we have created for this Amazon application. So here if we go to our app.js, here you can see we have 4 prime components. Number 1 is the main page, number 2 is the display content, followed by the place order, and last is the checkout. So let's first see how each and every component is looking like, and after that we will be integrating all of them together so that we can get a complete application from the scratch. So let's first revise what we have created and let's start with the main page. So if I enable the main page and save it, you can see this is how our main page was looking like, which was brilliant. Now comes the second page, which is nothing but our display content. So let's see how it is looking. So here is our display page, which have some content like some mobiles with some filters, followed by the place order page, which looks something like this. So let's comment out this one. So this was our place order page, and at the last we have the checkout page. So these are all the 4 pages we have for our Amazon clone, and this is the 4 prime page that we need for creating the entire application. Let's now see how with the help of the React routers we can navigate from one page to another. So if you do not know what is React router, so React router is actually a library that helps us to navigate between the pages based on the URL pattern. So over here if you see, here our URL pattern is localhost 3000, and it is not followed by any URL pattern like /home or /orders. So this is our root directory, and based on our application, whenever a user lands to a root directory, the user should land to our home screen, and that is what we should follow. Similarly, whenever a user lands to localhost /checkout, then the checkout page, that is this page, should open up. So in this way, based on the URL pattern, the user should land to a specific page what we will be defining. So let's see how with the help of the React router DOM we will be achieving this specific functionality. So let's start with the implementation of the React router. So the first thing that we need is we need to install a specific library, and that is the React router DOM. So let's first install that. So let's first install the React router DOM from here. So this will take a couple of minutes to get installed. So let's wait for some time. While this is getting installed, meanwhile, let me first tell you how this React router actually works. So basically what we have to do, within the router tags, we have to keep the entire application. And you know, for a React application, this is basically the starting point, which means that if I encapsulate this entire tag within this React router, which means that our entire application is within this router content. And once the entire component structure gets within the React router, from any of the component, we are free to use the React router components. So here you can see our React router got installed. Let's run the project again. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to import the libraries that are required for creating this router functionality. So let's see what are the components that we need to import for our application. So let's go to the React router documentation. So here you can see the first import that we have to do is we have to import the React router, the React switch, route, and the link from the React router DOM. So let's first import these 3 libraries from the React router DOM. So let's copy this and paste it over here. So we are done with the import which we are required for creating the React DOM application. So now the next thing that I was talking about is we have to encapsulate the entire application within the router tags. So here you can see within this sample example, they have also given that they have encapsulated the entire application within this router element. So let's also do the same thing for our component. So let's import the router component here and let's save it. Now let's see how we will be implementing the functionality of the React routing. So what we have to do, whenever a user lands to our application, which means the user lands to our root URL, at that time we have to show the home page. Otherwise, if the user lands to the display page, something like this, we have to show the display content for the website. Similarly, if the user lands to the order page, the order application should open up. But as of now, you can see only a single page is getting loaded into our application just because within our apps.js we have the checkout component activated. But here we have to activate all this component so that the application works in a meaningful way. So let's see how we have to do it. So the first thing that we have to do, just like our Java application, here also in React we will be using a syntax called as switch. So as you know, in Java, switch is required to check multiple conditions together. Similarly over here, we will be using switch for the router component. So let's see how to implement that. So we will be including the tag called as switch, and within this switch tag we have to give the route for a particular component. So let me first implement this flow, and after that I will be explaining you in detail that how these things are working over here. So let's save it and let's see whether everything is actually working or not. So here you can see we are in our root directory, that is without any URL pattern, and you can see we are in our home screen, that is fine. So this is working as expected. Now let's test the second URL pattern, and that is display. So let's change the URL pattern to display, and if we write the display content which lists down all the mobiles in our application should get displayed. So let's refresh the screen and let's see whether it's working or not. So you can see even we are in the display pattern, but it's loading the home page for our URL. So there must be some problem. So let's try out with the next one. So let's change it to order. Here also you can see this is opening the home screen, which means that there is definitely some problem with our router component. So let's figure it out that why is actually not happening the way we have expected. So the thing is, like, whenever a router enters within the switch block, it tries to match the URL pattern that we are defining within this path variable. Now here you can see we have given the path blank as our root directory, followed by the display, order and checkout. Whenever a user is trying to access our website using the /order, what React router actually does it tries to check the URL pattern over here. So now what happens is, like, whenever React try to parse the data that is within this /order, the first thing it starts with is a blank space. And that is why whatever the URL pattern you provide over here, it will always go to the blank path that we have defined at the top. If you want to know the analogy of this one, this is same like the Java exception class. If you know that in Java, exception is the parent one and all the child classes, that is arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, comes from the root exception class. And that is why we cannot keep the catch block with exception at the top followed by the child exception. Rather what we have to give, we have to keep all the child at the top followed by the generic one, and that is the exception class at the bottom. So if you are familiar with the Java, hopefully this analogy will give you some hint that how this functionality is working over here. So let's see what are the solution to this problem and how we can solve this problem. So just like the Java exception class, we will be doing the same thing. We will be placing the generic one, that is the blank one or the exception class, at the bottom. So let's paste it at the bottom. And let's save it and let's see whether this functionality is also working like the way we have expected. So let's save it. Great. Right now you can see with /order, the order page is opening up. Let's try with the display. So with display, you can see our display page is opening up. So bingo, this is working the way we need for our application. Now let's see whether there is any other way to solve this problem. So there is also another way by which we can solve the problem of this router, and that is by using the exact keyword within our router path. So let me give you this as assignment, that how you can implement the same behavior with the help of the exact keyword. So now since you know that how we have implemented the React routers in our application, let's now implement few other components of the routers so that we can route between the pages. So let's save this and let's go to our display page. So the functionality that I will be implementing right now is a user on landing on this display page. Once the user clicks on a particular item, the user should land to the ordered page, which means this one, which gives a detailed view of the particular order that he wants to place. So we have to link these two pages together so that we can establish a flow between the pages. So let's see how we will be implementing that. So what we will be doing, we will be going to a display content page, and within this display content page we have the right side panel. And within this right side panel, this is the place where all the products are getting listed. So just like our simple HTML, we have to provide an anchor tag around this product component so that we can navigate between the pages. But in React, we do not use a simple anchor tag which we have for our HTML. Rather, we use the React link property and with the help of the link provided by the React router, we establish a connection between the pages. So let's see what I mean to say. So what I have to do over here, I have to surround this component with a link tag, and we have to specify that at which page I want to move. So here, once a user clicks on a particular product, he should move to the order page. So let's give /order. So let's save it. So here you can see we are in display page, and if I click on this phone, that is the iPhone 10, we are moving to our next page, and that is order. So here you can see we have established a link between these two pages, and this is actually working great. So great, you can see this is working quite brilliantly. But if you notice one thing, the data which we have over here is actually a static one, which means that whether I'm going with an iPhone 12, 11, 13, XR, whatever, it lands to a single page, and that is the iPhone 11. Because of the fact we have created a static component on this page, which is obviously cannot serve the purpose we are looking for. So we have to make this thing dynamic. So let's see how we can make this thing dynamic. But before that, let's do one more thing. That is, on clicking on the add to cart button, it should get added to our cart and the user should land to our checkout page. So let's implement that flow also, and after that we will make everything dynamic, and we will also see how we can transfer data from one page to another, and we can create an entire e-commerce application over here. So let's now first focus on how to move the user on clicking add to cart from here. So what we will do, within our place order page, we have the option, and that is add to cart. So once the user clicks on add to cart, we have to move that user to the checkout page. So similarly over here, we will be using the React router, and we will be implementing the functionality of React routing. So over here also we will be importing a link tag, and we will be moving the user to the next page, and that is checkout. So great, let's save it and let's see whether everything is working or not. So if I click on add to cart, yes, you can see we are in our add to cart page, which is obviously one more static page we have created. So now if I start from the scratch, for example, let's assume that the user have landed to this page that is displaying all the mobiles available on our Amazon website. And let's assume that I want to buy the iPhone 11. So let's click on iPhone 11, and great, you can see here the application have listed all the specifications that are available for iPhone 11. So great, I am satisfied with the product. Now I want to purchase. So first I will click on add to cart, and once I click on add to cart, the iPhone 11 or iPhone 12, whatever, gets added to our cart, and here it is showing the total amount that I have to pay. And if I click to proceed to buy, the user will land to the payment gateway method. But payment gateway is right now out of scope. But if you want, I will be creating a separate video on how to incorporate a payment gateway method into our website. So if you want, do let me know in the comment section below. I will be happy to incorporate a payment gateway for you guys. So right now, since we are done with the basic flow of our application, let's now see how we can make these things dynamic. So what we have to do is, whenever a user clicks on a particular mobile, obviously the user will land to the order page where all the order details will be shown for the user. And obviously, to show the property for a particular product in our next page, we need all this data from our database. And also we have to understand that which component or which product have been clicked by the user. So since these two are the separate page, we should implement a intercommunication between the two pages, and the way we should transfer the data from one page to another is with the help of the URL. So what we will be doing, once the user clicks on the iPhone 12 from here, that is from the display page, we will send the unique identifier of that iPhone 12 into our website, which means that, for example, this is the unique identifier for a particular mobile. We should pass this value in our URL pattern. And once the user lands to this page, we will first check that what is the data which is coming in the URL pattern, and based on this data, which is the unique identifier for this mobile, we will fetch all the details from our database, and we will show the list of details available over here. So I hope this explanation gives you a clear idea that how we will be implementing the dynamic way of retrieving the data. So let's first see how we can send this data into our URL path. So over here, within this link attribute, we have to pass the ID for this product. So let's assume that this is the ID for a particular product. So let's save it. So right now if you see, if I click on a particular product, here in the URL pattern it is also carrying the unique identifier for a particular mobile. But here in our application, since we have hard coded this thing, so obviously this will be not a unique one but a single string for each and every mobile. But with the same approach we will be trying to achieve this. So what we will be doing here, instead of giving this thing as hard coded, we have to make it dynamic. So I have to remove the string from here and let's pass the ID dynamically. So what I have to do, I have to make this thing dynamic. So the way we make it dynamic is like, after passing the slash order, we have to pass the item.id. So here in the JSON, I also need to include the ID because that is one of our variable. So let's add a random ID for each and every product. So yes, for each and every product we got a unique ID. Now let's save it. Now one more thing we have to do is we have to go to the app.js, and over here within the app.js we have to specify that in our router part, which means that we have to tell the React router along with the normal path we will be passing an ID variable over here which will be dynamic for each and every ID. So this is basically the method by which we send the data with the help of the URL. So I think this is clear to you. So what we are doing, around the product tag, we are creating a dynamic URL, and that is slash order followed by the item ID. And within this app.js, we are telling that this URL will be having an ID value associated with it, which will be dynamic in nature. So let's test out that whether this is working or not. So we'll go to our application and let's click the first item, that is the iPhone 10. So yes, you can see the ID got transferred to our next page. Similarly, if I click on the next product, so here you can see this is a different URL with a different ID. So in this way, each and every product will right now send some different ID which is associated with each product. And with the help of this unique product key or the ID, we can right now query our database and we can get all the meaningful data that we require for drawing this entire page into our canvas. So simple, right? Now let's see how we will make this thing dynamic. So this is basically a straightforward approach of making the things dynamic. We just need to remove the hard-coded string that we have created within the product component, and we have to refer to the dynamic variable. So first what we have to do, we have to call our first useEffect method so that we can load the data when the page gets loaded for the first time. So let's copy it from somewhere else. So here we have copied the useEffect from our product functionality. So now what we have to do, we have to mimic a API call over here. So actually in ideal situation, what should happen, once the user land to this page using this product ID, we should call a backend API to get the details of our product, which is basically nothing but one of the JSON files, something like this, which will return all the data in the form of the JSON. But since right now our backend API has not been implemented till yet, which we will be implementing in our next video, let's now mimic this same approach in a different way. So what we will be doing, we will be first capturing the ID that is coming in the URL, and after that we will be filtering that ID from this list of objects. So let's see what I mean to say. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to capture the ID that is coming from the URL. And to do so, we have to use a React hook, that is useParam. So since the ID is coming, so we'll give it as ID, and here we will be using the useParam property. And that's it, which means that from the URL pattern, we are getting the parameter which is called as ID. And that's it. And let's, for the sake of understanding, let's console out this ID. So here if I save it and go to the console, so great, here you can see this is the ID which is coming from the URL. So let's go back over here and let's click one more item. So here also you can see this is the URL and this is the same value which is coming in the console. Means we are able to capture the value or the parameter that is coming from the console. Let's now use this value that are coming from the URL and let's utilize this to make it dynamic. So what we will be doing over here is like, based on the value that is coming from the URL, which is the ID, we will be filtering that object from the list of objects over here, which will be like a fake API call. And once that filter returns an object to us, an object something like this, we have to display that dynamically over here within the body. So this will be a simple implementation. So let's do it quick. So here you can see we have written a logic to filter out a product based on the ID we are receiving from the URL. So let's save it and let's see whether it is working or not. So great, you can see with based on the ID that we are passing in the URL, we are receiving a particular item as response to our filter. So this filter is nothing but our fake API that we are making. Let's now utilize the item which we are receiving from here and let's populate this accordingly and make this thing dynamic. But obviously to fill all this data over here, we first need all this data in our data object. So let's create a custom object which will fulfill our purpose of providing all the data that are needed for this page. So let's first create a JSON file that will provide all the details that we require for this file. And that's it. This is the response we actually need from our server for describing a particular product. So let's copy this thing and paste it over here. Similarly, we will be creating few more items over here which will have a unique identifier which is associated with this page. So I hope this is clear to you that how these two pages are getting linked with one another. So let's quickly add few duplicate product items over here so that we can actually make the implementation much quicker. So here you can see we are almost done with all the items that are required. Now the next thing that we have to do, we have to simply make this page dynamic with the response we are getting from our fake API. So what we will do here, instead of giving an hard-coded string like this, we will be putting the data that we are receiving from our backend. So it will be product details dot name. So let's see if we are getting the value or not. So here you can see we are not getting the name which we are looking for. So obviously we have made some mistakes. So let's see. So what we have to do, we have to just make the item 0 because we are returning an array over here from the filter, and obviously this will be the first index of the array. So right now it should work. So let's see. Yes, the Apple 11 is showing. Now let's go back and let's check out one more. So let's click on iPhone 13, and yes, you can see iPhone 13 is getting populated dynamically. Let's click on 12. Yep. So this is working how we have expected. Let's now slowly make all this thing dynamic so that the entire page dynamically load for the user. So let's save it and let's see whether everything is working or not. So here you can see all the data are coming as required. Let's also now change the description part of it, means the about section. So for that what we have to do, we have to iterate over this about item which is coming in the form of array. So let's iterate over here. So let's save it and let's check that everything is working or not. So if I click on iPhone 10, you can see we are getting all the relevant information regarding iPhone 10 along with the corresponding price and the delivery date. So this is working fine. Let's test out for one more, that is iPhone 11. Yes, you can see we are getting the image logo dynamically along with all the description that are relevant for iPhone 11. So everything over here are working seamlessly and everything is rendering dynamically. So we can finally say that both the page, that is the display page as well as the order page, are totally dynamic in nature, and we are able to make a communication between the two with the help of the URL mapping that we have done over here. So since right now we are done with the two page, that is the display page and the order page, let's now implement the next page, and that is the last page, add to cart. So let's start with the implementation of this add to cart functionality over here. And to implement the add to cart functionality, we will be using the React Redux. So let's first see how React Redux will help us in establishing this communication. So let's start with the implementation. So the next functionality that we need to implement is the add to cart functionality, which means that whenever a user lands to this screen and clicks on add to cart, the corresponding product should get added to his cart over here, and it should get incremented by 1. And once the user clicks on this cart icon or clicks to the buy now icon, at that time the user should land to his cart display, and over there dynamically we should render the page based on the items that are already present in his cart. So let's start with the implementation of add to cart functionality dynamically over here. And to implement this functionality, we can go by three approaches. Number one is the Redux, by which we can transfer data from one component to another. Number two is the context API, which also does the same thing. And number three, the normal way of transferring the data using the props variable. So before going into the implementation, let's first understand that why over here we need a context API or a Redux framework for implementing this functionality. So hopefully you guys have understood that why we want to use the Redux or the context API to optimize or simplify our code. But over here, since Redux is almost a new topic which obviously need a separate concept of implementation, I will be keeping it aside and we will go with the context API. But if you want, I can create a separate video on Redux framework where with the help of a simple application, I will show you how a Redux framework actually works. So let's start with the implementation of the context API over here. So the first thing that we need to create for implementing the context API is we need to create a component called as cart context. So you can name it whatever you like, but I will be naming it as cart context. So let's first create a file called as cart context. Let's first import the React libraries. And the first step of creating a context API is we need to first create the context. So let's first create the context over here. So here you can see I have created the context called as cart context, and here at the top I have imported the create context over here. Now the next step of creating a context API is we need to create a provider over here. So let's create a component called as cart context provider. So while naming this component, you have to keep in mind one thing, that whatever the name of the context you are giving over here, this should be same along with the provider tag at the last. So this should be the naming convention for the cart context provider. Now let's move forward with the implementation. So the first thing we have to do is like within the state variable of this context provider, we have to initialize the item which we want to store. So if you look carefully throughout our application, you have to first understand that what is the data that should be passed dynamically across the application. So the data that we need to transfer across the application is the item that we are clicking over here, which is nothing but a JSON component which we are getting from the API. So if you look carefully in the placeholder component, actually we are rendering this component in our screen and which is coming from the API. And once the user clicks on add to cart, basically he want to buy this product, right? So we need to store this component into our DB or into our cart. So this is our basic objective of how we are putting an object or a product into our cart. So hopefully that explanation is clear to you. Now let's start with the implementation. And the way we should capture a particular object or a product into our database is with the help of an array. So over here we will be defining a simple array called as item, which will be initially an empty array because at the very beginning you do not have any product in your cart. So it will be empty. As well as the size of the cart is 0, means there is no item in your cart. So let's start with the implementation of these two attributes. After that we will keep on enhancing this provider class as and when we need to provide some additional functionality. Now let's see what we need to provide within this return statement. So let's first understand how the context API actually works. So for example, within this component over here what we have, now if I want to transfer a data from the display content to the main page, we have to encapsulate both the component within this context API. Which means that we have to write a tag that starts from here and ends over here so that the entire components gets encapsulated within this context API library so that the data can transfer within itself. So if you are not understanding with the flow, just hold for a minute. As soon as we will start with the implementation, the idea will be crystal clear to you. So let's start with the implementation of this provider class within this cart context. And the way we will be implementing that is as follows. And that's it. This is the simple syntax that you need to write to implement the context API for our React framework. So over here you can see with the help of the context API provider, we are just sending the value that we have defined within this state variable. Now let's see how we will be incorporating this provider class within our main component, and that is the app.js. So as I was telling you, since we need to pass our value from this place order component to our checkout component, we have to wrap these two components within this context provider API. But what we will be doing, just to make it simple, we will be wrapping the entire structure of components within the context provider so that we can transfer any data from anywhere. So here you can see the entire component structure of our entire application is encapsulated within this cart context provider, which means that right now we are free to transfer any data from any component to another component. So this is the actual power of the context API within the React framework. Now since we are done with the basic structure of the context API, now let's see how we will be implementing the add to cart functionality within our placeholder function. So the way we need to implement this context API within this placeholder component is very simple. First, we need to import the context API that we have created, and then we just have to use that context API. So let's see how we will be doing. And that's it. Here you can see we have imported the cart context within this placeholder component. So let's first understand what we have done. So here with the use of the React hook, we have used the use context functionality. And within this use context functionality, we have passed the parameter, the context which we want to import. So since we have defined the cart context over here, and that is why we are passing the cart context in the parameter. And here if we go to the cart context, here you can see we have defined two state variables, one as the item and one is the size. One thing you just have to keep in mind, the names you are giving for the state variable should be the same name that you want to import within your placeholder component. So you have to keep this thing in mind. So here if you see, this is our placeholder component. So here I can see there is some error in the placeholder component. So let me check it why. So here it won't be a third bracket of the array, rather it will be a second bracket, since we are getting the list of variables that we are passing within this component structure. So let's see, yes, we do not have any error, that's fine. Now let's proceed further. Now let's first understand the flow, that how this thing will be working. So here you can see, if I click on add to cart functionality, this product, which is basically a JSON object, should get added within the item property which we have defined within this context API, which means that we have to transfer data from this page, which is the placeholder, to this item object over here. And the way we will be doing it is very simple. Let's see how we will be doing it. So over here in the placeholder component, what we have to do within this add to cart button, we have to provide a functionality of adding to the cart. So we have to write an on-click listener over here. So this is the function that I need to call. So let's provide the implementation over here. So this is the body of our functionality. Let's also remove the hyperlink from the add to cart functionality, because right now we do not want that as soon as user clicks on add to cart button, he should go to the next page. Rather, what we need is once the user clicks on add to cart, the item should get added to the cart, and once the user clicks on buy now, the user should land to the checkout page. So what we will do, we will remove the checkout page from here and we will move it to the buy now option. So hopefully this makes sense to you. Let's now save it and let's implement this add to cart functionality. So the functionality that we need to implement within this add to cart over here is, whenever the user clicks on add to cart, the corresponding product should get added to the item variable that we have defined within the context API functionality. So for that, what we have to do, we have to write a function over here within this context API. So let me start with the implementation of this functionality, and after that I will let you know what I'm actually trying to achieve. So let's define a function called as increment, and within this increment we will be passing a value to it. And so you can see within this component we have created a functionality called as increment functionality, which will help us to add a product into our cart. So here you can see this is the existing item that are already there in the cart, and now what we have to do, within this item list we have to push the value that are coming as our parameter. So this functionality is done. So right now the product that we have added from the cart got added to a temporary local array structure. Now let's set this value within our state property, and for that we will be using the set state functionality. And over here within this set state we will be defining item equal to the new item list we have created. So that's it, and similarly we will also update the value of the cart, that is the size. So hopefully this functionality is clear to you that what we are doing. If it is not clear, hold for a minute. Once we are done with the complete implementation, I will explain you one more time exactly that what we are doing in each and every step so that you can easily put some additional functionality if it is required for you. So let's go to the place order, and from here we have to call the new functionality that we just have created, and that is increment. So let's first pass this increment functionality as our parameter. So what we'll do from here, we will pass this increment functionality. So right now you can see we have passing the state variable as well as the increment functionality as a spread operator. Let's save it and let's call it from the place order functionality. So here first we have to capture that event, that is the increment thing that we are passing, and we just need to call this increment functionality from here. And that's it. This is this much simple. And also we have to pass the item we just have added into our cart, which is nothing but the product details over here. So let's pass this as our parameter and let's save it. So hopefully there is no error. So we are done with the basic functionality of adding a product into the cart. Let's also display it into our application, and for that we will go into our navigation.js, and here you can see here within the cart item I have given this value as a hard-coded string, that is 0, which I have to make it dynamic. And for that what we have to do, we have to again import the cart context within this component because this is a separate component. So let's first import the cart context over here. So within this render object I have to import all the things that are coming from the cart context. So let's first import the context over here, and the way we import a context within the functional component is somewhat different the way we import within the class component. So in our previous component, that is the placeholder, this was a functional component, and you have seen with the help of the React hook we have imported this context. But this one, that is the navigation.js, since this is a class component, we have to import it in a different way. So let's also understand that how we should import a context within a class component. And that's it. Within the class component we just have to write static context type equal to the context type that we want to import. So let's now leverage the context file over here, and within this render object we will be doing the same thing the way we have done within this placeholder component. That is, we need to import all the things that are coming from the context API. So let's copy it and let's paste it over here. And let's save it. And here you can see with the help of this component, that is this.context, we can get hold of all the parameters that we are sending from the context class. Now what we have to do, we just have to replace the size that we have defined over here, that is 0, with the size that is coming from the API. Let's save it and let's see whether everything is working or not. So oops, I think there is some mistake that I have done. So here you can see it is telling that this context is not defined, which means whatever we are trying to achieve within this context class is not coming over here. So let's debug it, why it's happening. So great, this is actually a functional problem which will help you to understand that how it is working. So actually this is a good problem because with the help of this problem you will understand that how the context API actually works. So if you look carefully, the navigation.js which we have defined over here is outside the context block which we have defined. So here you can see this is where our context provider is starting, and our navigation bar, that is the navigation.js, is defined at the top, which is this navigation bar is not encapsulated within this provider class, and that is why whatever the object that we are transferring using the context is out of reach for this navbar.js, and that is why it is defining that, and that is why it is defining that this is undefined for that class. So the simple solution of this problem is that we just have to provide this navbar within this context provider. So I hope everything will be working right now. So let's save it and let's see in the browser. So great, you can see right now it is working. So if you have already noticed, this value is already 0, which means that the value is coming from the context API, because we have already replaced the hard-coded string 0 from there and have replaced with the size value that we are getting from the context API. So let's see if we click on add to cart whether this get implemented or not. So let's click on add to cart. So I think there is some error again I have done. So let's debug it. So we'll go to the context API. So here there is a small mistake, that is this won't be a size, this will be the length. So let's click on add to cart, and great, you can see the item is getting added to the cart. Let's add it one more time, and great, you can see As soon as I click on add to cart, the item is getting added to the cart and also the value is getting refreshed the way it should be. Now let's just debug the code a bit so that we can clearly understand the complete flow over here. So for that, what I will be doing, I will be opening the inspect element and I will show you exactly what is happening over here. So let's go to the placeholder and let's also open the context API over here. So let's reload the complete page. So the first thing that we will be doing is we will be clicking on add to cart. And here you can see as soon as I clicked on add to cart, it is calling the local functionality that we have defined, and that is this add to cart functionality. And from here it is internally invoking another functionality, and that is increment functionality that we have defined within our context API. And within this increment functionality, we are actually passing the product details that got selected, which is nothing but the JSON object that we have defined over here. So here you can see this is getting passed as a parameter to this increment functionality. So hopefully this is clear. Let's pass it, and as soon as I passed it, you can see it landed to the cart context and the function that we have invoked from our product component, which is the increment functionality. And within this increment functionality, here you can see the value is coming in the form of a JSON. And if you see the functionality that we have defined over here is on the first step, we are checking that what is the existing item within the cart. So the item is 0, means there is no item in the cart. So what we are doing, we are just directly adding that value within our array that we have defined. So right now within this item list, we have the single object, and that is the item that we have added to the cart. And here with the help of the set state, we are updating both the state variable, and that is item as well as the size of the cart. So this is the new item and this will be the length of the cart, which is 1. And that's it. So here you can see once everything got updated, again it came back to the navigation bar because there is a refresh event that got happened. And here within this navigation bar, obviously we need to update this value to 1, and within this context we are having 3 parameters. One is the size, item and increment. So here you can see the size of the value is 1, and based on the size we are updating the size of the cart over here, and thus as we pass it, you can see this will get updated by 1. So this is the complete flow of how the context API is actually working. So we are defining a set of value as well as the setter and getter of those state values within the context API, and we are actually invoking those setter and getters from the child component of the context API. And this is how the entire functionality is working. Now we also have to see some additional functionality that we need to define within this context API. So let's now see what are the additional things that we have to define. If I add 2 more items to our cart, so right now the total value of the cart is 3, means we have 3 instances of this iPhone 10 within our cart. But if you carefully notice one thing, you will get to know that as soon as I refresh the screen, this will get defaulted with 0. So let's first see that. So here you can see if I just refresh this screen, the cart is getting defaulted with 0. Because of the fact the context API or the Redux, everything works on the session level, which means that as soon as we refresh the page, the session gets expired and a new set of context variable get generated, and thus it will get initialized with the default variable that is 0 that we have defined within the context API. So we have to actually solve this problem, and the way we can solve this problem is with the help of 2 approaches. The first approach is whenever a user is adding something to the cart, we have to persist that data, which means we cannot keep it on a session variable, rather we have to either save it on our local cache memory or we have to save it in the deep, so that in the future when the user comes back to our application, the user can find his existing cart item. So the simple way of implementing that is with the help of the cookie or with the help of saving the data in the database. So actually saving the data into the database is the actual approach which we will be going through. But right now we will be saving it in the cookie, and we will also enhance this functionality of saving to the cart with the help of the database in our next video, where we will be creating the REST API for this entire Amazon application. But as of now, we will save the data within the local storage cache. So let's implement that. So what we will do, we will create another functionality over here, and that is save to local cache. And that's it, which means that within the local storage we are creating a variable called as myCart, and within that myCart we are saving the object that is the entire set of items we have in the cart, and we need to call this function that is save to local DB from here once the user is done with the increment functionality. So hopefully this will work. So let's save it and let's see in the browser. So here you can see our cart is defaulted with 0. Now let's open the inspect element to see whether the value is getting persisted within our local cache or not. So here you can see within application local storage we have only one instance, that is user, and if I click on add to cart, here you can see the value should get persistent within the local storage. And if I go to the cart, you can see this is the item which is getting added into our cart. So that is great. So here you can see we have only one item in the cart, and that is why it is showing at 0. So let's now add with another item, that is second item, and here you can see the second item is also getting added over here as expected. So as soon as I will keep on adding items into our cart, the item will get saved within our local storage. And that is great. So with the help of this implementation, we can easily create the persistent behavior of our add to cart. But if you still see, if I just refresh the screen, it will get defaulted with 0. Because of the fact we are not using the item that we have stored within our local storage. Rather, we are defaulting it with an empty value. So here, instead of defaulting with an empty array, we have to first check that whether there is some element within our local storage or not. And if it is not there, then we have to default it with the empty. Otherwise, we have to initialize it with the set of value already present in the cart. So let's start implementation of that simple behavior over here. And to implement this functionality, first what we have to do, we have to check whether there is any value that are present in our local storage or not. And if there is any value that is already present, then we will define with that value, otherwise it will be defined with the null. So let's implement that simple functionality. And here we will first check that within this local storage whether there is any value or not. And if it is not undefined, which means that there is some value over here, then what we'll do, we will try to get that value from the local storage. Otherwise, if there is no value, then we will be defining an empty cart. So I hope this is clear to you. Similarly, we will get the total amount of item in the cart. And here in the state variable, we will be defining this empty cart with this existing one, and we will be defining the size with this existing amount. So hopefully this logic is clear to you. This is simple functionality of an existing one. So let's save it. So here right now you can see after reloading the screen, the cart is defined with 0. Let's click on add to cart. So here you can see this is working fine. Now at this point, if the functionality which we have implemented right now is correct, then after the browser reload, this 4 should remain as it is. So let's do a browser refresh. And great, you can see when I'm doing the browser reload, the cart value is still intact, which means that all the things that we have bought within this session will stay in the browser storage. But obviously if we run this application in some different browser, at that time it will be again showing at 0, because we are saving it on the local storage of the browser, which is browser specific. So I hope you are clear with that concept. So to be on the safe side, in our fourth video where we will be incorporating the front end with the backend, over there instead of storing the data in the browser cache, we will be also storing the data in our database, so that it will be consistent across all the browsers. So hopefully that makes sense that why we are implementing in this way. So since we are done with this implementation, let's now enhance the feature, and that is we have to go to the cart, and as soon as we go to the cart, all the relevant information should open up. But as of now, if you know, if I go to the cart, it will show up some of the images that are already predefined over here. So what we have to do within our checkout functionality, here instead of making all this thing hard-coded, what we have to do, we have to simply look to the JSON object that are already present in our local storage, and based on the item that we are getting, we have to render it accordingly. So let's make these things dynamic so that we can complete the entire flow of execution. So let's first make this thing dynamic. So the first thing that we will do, we will import the cart context over here. So we will be copying the existing code from here. And over here, the array that we are getting as one of the parameter, that is the item, we have to iterate over this array and we have to render the page accordingly. So let's do it quickly. And that's it. Here if I save it, you can see based on the data that is coming within this item array, this is rendering accordingly. So for example, if there are 5 items over here in our cart, based on that 5 times this checkout item will get populated. So let's see whether that is happening or not. So let's reload the screen. So here you can see, since within our cart 4 items are populated over here, and that is why 4 instances of this product item are there. So this is working amazing. Just the only small change that we have to do is we have to render all these things dynamically, which is actually quite a simple implementation. So for that, what we have to do, we just have to send those things as a prop variable, and within this checkout item we have to render it accordingly. So let me start doing that implementation quickly. After that, we will be moving to our next functionality. So let's make this thing dynamic. And that's it. Let's save it and let's see in the browser. So yes, you can see this got changed. I hope this is working fine. So to check this functionality, what we will be doing, we will be adding different instances of iPhone over here, so that we can understand that different products are getting listed within our cart. So the first thing what we will do, within our application, we will be deleting our existing cart. So let's delete that, and let's go to our display page and let's buy different iPhone versions over here. So let's first buy an iPhone 12. Let's add it to cart. So this is good. Let's buy an iPhone 13, add it to cart. Yep, this is working fine. And let's buy an iPhone 10. That is our XR. So let's click on add to cart. So here you can see 3 products got listed over here. Let's go to the buy now option and create. Here you can see all the different flavors of iPhone is getting rendered, and all of them are getting rendered dynamically. So we can say that our shopping cart is also working amazingly. Only small thing that you have to handle separately, and that is here we have to check one more condition, that if the cart is empty, which means there is no item to display in the cart, at that time we just need to show a different message like there is no item to display in the cart, please buy something. So in this way we have to just give a relevant message for the user, otherwise it will be coming as a blank canvas. So that I will be leaving for you guys to implement. So let's also change a small thing, and that is this total item and the total valuation of your cart, which is actually quite a simple fix for you guys. So for that, what we have to do, instead of hard coding this value over here, we just need to calculate that thing dynamically. So for that, I will be creating a function over here. So let's do it quickly. So let's save it and let's see how it is coming on the browser. So great, you can see this is giving the correct value, which is the total value of our cart, which is nothing but the total summation value of each and every product. So I hope you got the functionality which I have implemented over here, which is too simple. Also, let's update the total number of product in the cart, and that will be the size over here. So let's save it and let's see in the browser. So great, here you can see we have the total subtotal of the 3 items, and this is the value you have to pay to buy all this item. So right now we can say the entire flow is working fine. So if I just do a proceed to buy, we should land to our payment gateway method, which is obviously out of scope. So one more small functionality that I want you guys to implement, and that is the delete item from cart. And for that, over here just provide a button called as delete, and on clicking of the delete button, you should similarly invoke a method from this context cart, and here instead of increment there will be another functionality called as decrement, which will be actually deleting that product from the cart. So I hope that functionality you guys can implement at your home. So I'm leaving that as an enhancement problem for you guys, so that you can learn something out of this tutorial. So over here you can see we are almost done with the end-to-end functionality of our Amazon e-commerce application. So here if you see, we have the first landing screen which gives some overview of the products, and on clicking of the mobiles we will be going to a display card, that is the mobile screen, and over here you can buy a mobile according to your choice, and as soon as you click on a particular mobile, that mobile product will get displayed, and from here you can add to cart, and also you can purchase the mobile from the cart. So this was the complete flow of execution of how you can easily implement an Amazon clone using the React.js. So there are a few more attributes that obviously need to be incorporated over here, like we have to provide a back button over here on this Amazon logo that will land to our home screen. Also, we have to provide some hyperlink to these pages which will give you the overview of the products related to fashion, electronics, new release and all these things, which is nothing but a static page or some dummy page, which is nothing but this display page which will be having some details of the product which we will be getting from our database. So I hope you guys can simply implement all these hyperlinks and everything at your home, and you can easily make a fully working UI part for our application. Now in our next tutorial, over there we will be learning how to create the relevant backend application using the Spring Boot framework, and over there we will be using a NoSQL database, and that is the MongoDB. So let's see how we will be dealing with a huge backend application for supporting this beautiful front-end application. And also in our fourth video, we will be learning that how to incorporate the front end with the backend application, and how with this front-end application we can fetch the response from our backend application, and how we will be dynamically showing that thing in the UI. So at the end of the fourth video, we will be entirely done with the complete implementation of our Amazon clone. But if you are simply interested with the front end, so this is what we have delivered until now. Now in our next video, over there we will be incorporating the total front end with the back end, where we will be incorporating some other additional features such as the authentication feature and some other additional feature more, so that you can say that we have completely implemented the Amazon clone. But before that, please do subscribe to my channel so that you can get notified whenever I upload the next video of this lecture, and that is the implementation of backend application. So let's first like and subscribe this video, and after that we will move to our next video where we will be delivering the complete backend application along with the system design principles that you need to know for creating a distributed microservice application. So let's move to the next video. Thank you.